We are live. What? Good evening, people. Good evening. Oh, hold on. I got a phone call. Well, we're gonna restart this. Give me a sec. Okay, let's start this all over again. Let's start this all over again. What is up? Good evening. Hello, everybody. It's been a long day for me. New content, new UA has dropped. So there's a lot of changes, a lot of new stuff. We're looking at the next big round of D&D update for, I'm calling it new 5e, NU 5e, whatever 2024 update, D&D next, 1 D&D 6e, whatever the hell anybody wants to call it. But we're looking at round 2 of this playtest material, and this is a big old chunky boy, big old chunky bit that we got today. What's going on, Evander? I am doing good. I had a very busy day. I've only seen little bits and pieces of discussion in various discords, but I myself have not had a chance to look at this, so I'm looking at this with very, very clean eyes, very, very fresh eyes. So yeah, so it's going to be a lot of my own actual reactions to changes. I'm based off of just discussion I've seen. I've already seen a lot of people just generally upset. It just really depends on which pockets of the TTRPG space you inhabit and how people are going to really feel about this. To be honest, I'm very indifferent to all of this now. Um, what I'm looking for personally is, will this excite me to play like 5e? You know, I am playing other systems. I've been excited and been enjoying playing Pathfinder Second Edition, but also trying out Cipher System on Kedup's channel. I did a one shot with them, and I got super excited playing that one. Actually, liking it a little bit more than Pathfinder for various different reasons. That I was like, okay, there something really has to draw me to really want to like enjoy the next bit of content or whatever they're bringing out for 5e in 2024. But I'm also not as pessimistic or upset or frustrated as like other people in this scene, other YouTubers, other designers. I'm very aware that WotC is designing this in a way that it's majority rules. They are going to play it safe, and they're running a business. They like honestly, they legitimately don't need to create or update 5e in the sense that they're doing now, but they're doing it anyway. And being in this space for at least 3 years and playing the game since Elemental Evil, there's been a lot of complaints, a lot of asks, a lot of demands, a lot of wishes and changes wanted for the system. And I'm gonna be honest, from my perspective, we are kind of we're getting answers to those changes, those requests, but it might just not be what exactly people are wanting or what they've implemented or what they've grown into for that works at their table. Like I think that's where people haven't really kind of figured it out. Especially like in various pockets of the community where they are being a little bit more louder, they're a little bit more upset that these big drastic changes aren't really happening. But it also kind of comes down to they're not going to happen because they don't really. 5e is still very, very successful. They don't need to really rock the boat, but they obviously want to update the game based off of demands and requests and little kinks that they've seen as they've developed stuff. Not really trying to like cover for wizards on this. There's still some stuff I personally just like don't really comprehend or why they're going that, or I personally don't like that would work at my table or what I would want to see in the game. But it doesn't mean that I don't think it's overall like bad for the game either. So yeah, uh, let's see. Reading the chat too. I can't wait to see Terran flip around when he sees the dancer subclass. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. Terran, aka Indestructible Boy, friend of the channel. He has a dancer class dedicated. It pretty much taking a performance art and wrapping it around its own identity and its own class with several dancing styles and subclasses to support it. And then now they're gonna it looks like the official bard is gonna have something of that nature. Not the first time we kind of seen this idea played for the bard, or at least for spellcasters. They've already sort of hinted at including this sort of like performance art style in spellcasters during the Strixhaven UA, because the Prismari College was a very performance based uh, college, pretty much mixing a combination of like of performing art um as well as like classical art, as another way to say it. There's performing arts, and then they were also like making sculptures and paintings and etc. out of magic. So not the first time we've seen this idea of like adding dancing in the class. It was just very much elemental based on that one. So I'm really interested in seeing that. And also Circle of the Sea in the Druid, which sounds pretty sick. What's going on, Salty Lizard? We're just about to get started. So again, we have 7 classes. We have the Bard, the Cleric, the Druid, the Monk, the Paladin, the Ranger, and the Rogue. From what we've seen in previous videos, Wizard of the Coast has gone on the record saying they are reverting back to some extent the subclass progression, where it's no longer going to be standardized. There's been mixed feelings on this, considering that none of the classes are going to get their subclasses at first level or second level anymore. Everybody starts at third, but they will have their own progression elsewhere. This really hinders or changes up how clerics, sorcerers, wizards, warlocks, right? Warlocks, wizard, sorcerer, druid, cleric, like obtain their subclasses, while the rest of the classes, which tend to be martial classes, really martial leaning classes, or the bard, still keep their regular progression. So this is a positive, some positives, because one of the things people are really overlooking, because they just want the level 1, level 2 subclasses, is that it does give us some kind of backwards compatibility back into the system, where which was lost and wasn't really there for player options when initially they started these playtests. So now that they've reverted back to this sort of scaling, this subclass scaling closer to what it originally was. Well, now we kind of have that back, so people can still use their Tashas, they can still use their Xanathars, but obviously for the classes that got them at first and second level, now we're going to see some changes. But honestly, some of those changes I didn't feel were necessarily bad. Like for the cleric, I personally liked how the cleric worked out with these changes, because it actually allowed more flexibility, despite it losing some narrative surrounding the class, and picking their domain, picking their what faith they're following right at the beginning. But in terms of just like structurally how the cleric played out, you had a lot more flexibility in choosing what kind of cleric you wanted to be. So if you wanted to be a spell slinging Tempest cleric, you would be allowed to do that with the new cleric. But if you just wanted to throw down and be Thor, a cleric of Thor, boom, you have that option too. So there was that, especially for me, like making a cleric that is the cleric like based around fire. Your only option is to be a blaster, but it would be pretty sick to be a cleric that had a big ass hammer that was on fire and you're just whacking people. You know, that fantasy was kind of missing, so it allowed them to have that flexibility. But there still was some losses in reverting back to this subclass progression. Obviously, the rogue going back to its original subclass progression, potentially it loses the 6th level feature. So there is a big gap between when you get your next subclass feature, so you don't really feel like you're playing the subclass. So there is that. So without further ado, we're just going to focus on the classes. We have 7 classes we're going to be going into. This is really going to be, we'll dive in where we can dive in. A lot of it's going to be my first reaction to stuff. It's not like we haven't seen this stuff before. But at the same time, I do want to pay a little bit more attention to Monk today, just because this is the first time we're actually seeing it in the playtest, despite this being like the quote unquote second round. And I have a feeling the reason the Monk took so long outside of, the OGL, just that pretty much eating up a lot of their time to kind of promote this shit. Oh, I have a feeling, and I hope this is what happened, that they went through sensitivity readers and culture consultants, as well as with the design team going back and forth and making sure that changes were made to the Monk that prevented it from being quote unquote Asian the class, that it can stand on its own outside of just being pretty much a stereotype of pop culture tropes and and that stuff. So without further ado, let's start off. Let's see, cleric, or actually, excuse me, we're going to start with Bard. So with Bard, we start off with charisma. Let's see what main changes that they're pointing out. Design notes, Bard updates. Here are the main updates in the class since its last playtest version. Bardic Inspiration has returns to its 2014 form with the following changes. A Bardic Inspiration die is used in response to failing a D20 test. You no longer have to guess whether you failed, and a creature has up to an hour, not just 10 minutes, to use the die. The healing option in the previous Bard playtest has been removed because in playtesting, the healing option was encouraging too much usage hoarding, which easily resulted in the Bard not using Bardic Inspiration at all. Okay. They wanted to, yeah. I think in general, people are going to be happy about this because they just didn't want the Bard being pigeonholed into being like the healer. But at the same time, they're good that they're seeing in playtests that people are just not hoarding Bardic Inspiration die to be a healer and actually want it to be a lot more engaging mechanic. So yeah, and then a Bardic Inspiration die is used in response to failing a D20 test. You no longer have to guess whether you failed. Okay. So we went back to originally what it was, instead of just being based on a reaction. So you have to use it pretty much ahead of time. So Bardic Inspiration die, D6, D8, D10. So what I want to see is subclass progression. Okay, we get Bard subclass at 3. Bard subclass at 6. Magical Secrets is back. Subclass at 14. So this means, just looking at this progression, they reverted it back to the original progression. This, good and bad. So the problem by reverting it back is now there's no longer a 10th level subclass feature like everybody else would have. There's a little less flavor, I guess you could say, on that you can play into your subclass, but you get enough features early on from the 3rd and 6th level to really have that. But that does kind of suck. But the good thing is, okay, you get magical secrets back, and honestly, getting just free spells from any spell list is extremely powerful. It is super strong. You just get to pick. So yeah, like for me, it's like, okay, we lose that bit of flavor, but you get magical secrets back, so you're still a win. There's the 8 level gap between subclass features. Yeah, there is an 8 level gap between subclass features. That's always been the case. But at the same time, you're getting freaking spells. Like you get to pick any spell from any spell class, filling in whatever potential like spell gap that could happen in your party, depending on what your party makeup is. Still, yeah. You lose some subclass, but you get magical secrets back, and on top of that, we get the spell like the subclass progression is reverted back, so backwards compatibility to all the subclasses from Xanathar's and from Tasha's Cauldron and everything. So yeah, so it's like okay, well, no good nor bad. It's just for me. I don't. I'm indifferent about this because it was expected. They said this was going to happen in the last video before these came out, and at the same time, something people have been wanting for since they started the playtest was true backwards compatibility, and you're getting that. So yeah, like I see this divide, and I see it with like just straight up with the Bard as an example. Like I don't think the 5e community, the D&D players really know what they want when it comes to this. Like they really don't, because you have some of them that want the newer scaling, and then you want people to pretty much just keep it as close to what it is currently with some minor tweaks and updates. And if this is really based off of surveys and response to what we're putting in there and the majority, pretty much majority rules, it seems like majority of people kind of just want to keep it similar with some minor updates. And we're solving the problem of backwards compatibility to some extent. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's hard to really double down on, like, really consider to really think. For me, it's like, is it really bad? Because I think that's it was a major concern, at least in my circles, like how much backwards compatibility, like, are we gonna get true backwards compatibility? Because people are investing money into this game. It's like 30 to 50 bucks, now 60 bucks a book, right? Depending where you're buying it. And especially if you're a player, you want your shit to work. And when they tell you and they promise backwards compatibility, that shouldn't just extend to DM options, campaigns, monsters. Yeah, players need to be thrown a bone too. No. Okay, so other changes that they made. Spellcasting has 2 noteworthy changes. Each bard gets to choose whether to use the arcane, divine, or primal spell list, and spell excuse me, and two spell preparation. I can't say this freaking word. Spell preparation is no longer tied to the level of your spell slots. Okay. We haven't got to the monk yet. We will get to the monk. We're just starting with bard. I want to kind of just get a feeling, and I'm going on my rants a little bit. My mid takes, my mild takes. First change leads to the fact that bard might have learned their arts in an arcane, divine, or primal context, and the second change is widely requested in the playtest feedback. Okay, I like the spellcasting choice and being able to choose what spell list you game from. That is sick. Okay, and for me, it's like, as somebody that looks more, that really started the channel looking at how to like make flavorful characters and how to have use your character as like different ways to express your creativity and really like mix and match their concepts. I like that. This opens up a range of characters for players to really choose from. Because okay, you want to play some sort of Fae, boom, you take the primal spell list. You can pick any bard subclass, but then you take your primal spell list. You have Fae leaning spells, right? Or say you want to be a choir boy, you're a singer in a church. no matter the subclass you pick, boom, having that divine spell list lets you kind of play into that idea. And then arcane, obviously, if you're learning magic through study or any or a class, pretty much your typical bard, where it's through stories, etc. Like you have all that. That's awesome. I really like this change. It just opens up another way to kind of like really mold your character to the way you want it, and find little ways to like include that flavor in your character building. I like that. Jack of all trades has returned to second level. Okay, not mad at that. Bard subclasses levels now match the level progression in the 2014 Bard, ensuring compatibility with subclasses already printed. Boom. So okay, backwards compatibility. They're straight up calling it out. People been like really reaming them on this, and now they're saying, hey, it's there. We're bringing it back. Like there you go, it's here. Nick says it sucks that they are not doing the United subclass progression and are reverting to effectively the OG 5e version. Yeah, I think I did not mind the standardized subclass progressions. I thought it did open up some design space. I think for me, it opened up a way to design and allow for like really big concepts to kind of filter out through multiple subclasses. But at the same time, too, the negative is that they could really get lazy. And then instead of giving individualized, very flavorful, specifically to the class subclasses, they could have just got lazy and just be like, well, here's an undead grave inspired subclass because for our undead book or vampire subclass, we'll just make 4 for each mega group instead of making dedicated like subclasses for certain classes that are a little bit more lean to the more flavor specific to the class and utilize the actual mechanics of the class. Um, so it's a double edged sword. Like it's one of those things like there is potential to do a lot of cool shit, but what we've seen from Wizards of the Coast and what sort of material they've put out, they don't spend the time or the resources to really explore it in the way that the third party scene would take it where we want to take it. Um, while people will say Wizards of the Coast is lazy, they're just they don't have the chops anymore. More than likely, it's more so resources, time. Like any big mega corpo run business, they're only going to allocate so much so much money to actually fund stuff that they're not going to actually push forward and actually really develop things that they probably should. Because they're just gonna like, I think people need to realize like Wizards of the Coast was being ran for profit. That's part of the things it sucks. It's what it is, but also that's something we have to accept. But also that means that if you're going to continue playing 5e and you want things a certain way, you do not have to rely on Wizards of the Coast to play 5e. Go look at third party. Go support third party. Like straight up, go support third party. They're probably going to give you the cool shit that you're looking for. They really are. So like what you're saying, Nick, you're really hoping that the standardized subclass stuff was going on. There are stuff on the guild right now that have shared archetypes, like from the Strixhaven, that is inspired by the Strixhaven material from that UA that are up on the guild right now on the DM's guild. Yeah, you're going to give WotC some kickback, but you're still going to support third party publishers, third party designers, and they played with that idea and have made it and introduced it into and explored it and put in other subclasses out there that are like on a mass level that are very broad. I believe it is an Eberron supplement. It was inspired by Eberron, very flavorful Eberron subclasses that are very, very broad. I recommend looking that up and going. Ukulele Bard is behind that one. I interviewed him about it a long time ago. So yeah, like I think that's one of the things that it reminds me very much of comic book fans. The canon. It's always about the canon, and then they get frustrated when they change canon, they retcon stuff, or there's another like publishing change where they upend the the in comic universe, they have another crisis, they have another mega event that just changes the history, whatever. And then the stuff that's not canon, they get upset, and stuff that gets changed, they get upset. And they just want to, whatever the publisher, whatever Marvel or DC says is what is true, you have to go by that. Nah, you don't. You don't. Like what I've learned in comic books, from reading comic books and seeing all those changes happen, and I apply it to how I approach kind of D&D. Um, with comic books, those stories always happen. You read those stories; they did not change. They made you feel the way they made you feel. So if they're real for you, it doesn't matter if they retcon it or not. They happen. You read it. That's all that matters. It's still there. You still own it. And then I would say that with WotC too. With this stuff, they can make changes or they can introduce stuff that's not completely developed. But go look at third party. You'll probably find some cooler shit there. I definitely have. Like I've the more invested in 5e I've seen a lot of cooler classes being introduced by third party publishers. A lot more different rules, different ways to handle certain aspects of 5e. So yeah. Mini rant over. Evander, not truly OG because no more first level subclasses. Yeah, it's not. That's one of those things. Not everything is going to be like straight up completely backwards compatible, but a large portion of the classes are. Like I want to see like how much of these changes really hurt the class or where really push the class in a stronger direction for their narrative and its gameplay style, even if it is at a loss of like some narrative to it. So that's like another thing. Like it's not completely, but also it's not like Wizards isn't going to do anything to not help players and tables convert the old subclasses. They have gone on record. They've said this multiple times. They are going to have a guide as a guide of some sort. I don't know to what extent, to help people use Tasha's and Xanathar's subclasses. Ones that have, I'm assuming the ones that have not been updated, and convert them for classes that have had their subclass progression changed. So yeah. Okay, back to Bard, so we can get closer to Monk. Other changes, Bard subclasses. Okay, we went back. Okay, Font of Inspiration has returned to 5th level and is now also allows you to expend spell slots to use Bardic Inspiration if you're out of uses. Okay, that's a buff. That's a big buff. Not bad either. Not mad at that. That's a buff. To be able to use your spell slots to still do your cool class thing. Counter Charm returns and has been improved. It's now 7th level and can be used as a reaction rather than an action. Okay. I gotta reread what Counter Charm is. But weren't they flipped? Oh, wait. Okay. Let me pull up. D&D Balloon. Let's see what the Bard is. Let's see what Bard is now. Class. Bardarino. Okay. So, okay, Font of Inspiration stays at 5th level. Counter Charm moves up a level. Instead of coming in at 6, it comes in at 7th, giving more room for Bard, call it, for class features at 6th. Okay. Gives you more spice. And Counter Charm goes alongside a casting level bump where you get 4th level spells. Okay. Okay. No more action. Yeah. It gives it more play too, because what's Counter Charm Counter Charm as an action, you really had to like think about right what you needed to do and how you wanted to utilize it, and making it a reaction allows you to actually use it when you want to use it. All right. As an action, you can start a performance that lasts until the end of your turn. During that time, you and your friendly creatures within 30 feet of you have advantage on saving throws against being frightened or charmed. The creature must be able to hear you to gain this benefit. Now, instead of pretty much, not that you're wasting your turn for like a preemptively defend against stuff, because you really had to pay attention and really think out and actually see that it happening. And honestly, seeing that happen, because I'm thinking about actual play, right? Like making it an action, you either had to have meta knowledge to how the monster acts, or you had to wait until the monster did the thing. And if you like succeeded on the save, then you can actually on your next turn like do counter charm to prevent it from happening to anybody else, right? Very a little clunky, and it doesn't actually protect you when it should protect you. Oh, have you seen the Silvery Barbs video from Indestructible Boy about the CR fans getting angry over the spell? I have not. I've been freaking busy with work. I didn't even know he was streaming because my updates and stuff didn't notify me he was streaming at that time. Thanks, internet. I've been busy. Normally when some stuff gets posted, normally I get a chance to watch stuff while at work, and I've been working like a dog. So no, I'm gonna take some time though. That's this like this whole weekend. I get to relax a bit, and I'm gonna catch up on videos. I do want to see it because it doesn't surprise me about Silvery Barbs. It doesn't. Okay, Magical Secrets has returned to 10th level and is now affects your spell choice for all your later bard levels. Okay. Not mad about. It's like, okay, we lose a subclass feature, right? But you get to pick any 2 spells you want from any list. So can you really be mad? I don't know. I wouldn't be. Words of Creation is a new 20th level feature replacing Epic Boons. Epic Boon feats will return in a future UA, but they won't be built into class level progression. So they are reverting back to 20 level capstones. Sick. Okay. So Words of Creation is the new 20th level feature. So, okay. So what I want to do, we're looking at Bardic Inspiration because they did say they made some changes, right? So they reverted back to the original with some caveats. As a bonus action, you can inspire another creature within 60 feet of you. Within 60 feet of yourself who can see or hear you. That creature gains one of your Bardic Inspiration dice. A creature can have only one Bardic Inspiration die at a time. Once within the next hour, when the creature fails a d20 test, the creature can roll that die and add the number rolled to the d20, potentially turning the failure into a success. A Bardic Inspiration die is expended when it's rolled. Okay. You can confer the Bardic Inspiration to that number, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Back as normal, but you do not have to worry about like knowing if you failed or not. You can just roll it. So, sick. Okay. Bardic Inspiration die, just reverting back to how it was because there wasn't really any problem with it. I understand what they are attempting to address when they originally introduced the Bardic Inspiration change, because they just didn't want people sitting on the die. But what ended up happening, since it had a healing mechanic attached onto it, the bard at this point just sat on the die, right? So they ended up creating the same problem in a different way. Now just reverting back to how people normally use it. It's just one of those things. If you're a bard player, just remember to use this. And also, like, as a player, if a bard gives you Bardic Inspiration, remember to use it. That's really was the big problem. Just the table and players needing to remember to use their Bardic Inspiration die. I get why they were trying to address that potential issue, but I don't necessarily think they needed to code that into the mechanic. And I think that's just on the table saying, hey, dude, pay attention. Pay attention to the play. I gave you a dice. Roll that shit. It would basically be unoptimal to use the Bardic die for healing. And it's sad that it was that way. Good thing it changed. Yeah, even if okay, yeah. So you're bringing up the optimization aspects of it. So yeah, you were better off like not healing. right? Because it makes a lot more sense to and the way the skill system and saving throws and attacks work. It's pass or fail, right? That's just what it is. Um, and it would make sense that you would prefer to use the bardic inspiration die to pass or fail skill checks, saving throws, etc. Attacks. But for whatever reason, a portion of the community decided they felt that it was better to save it to keep your player alive because it's still ingrained that healing is good, right? And this might, I think, this exposes one of the things that might expose some of the people that play this game since they might not be as online as we are. They play in a way they play it what I would consider a lot more casual. There's the not a lack like I guess a lack of knowledge, or there's not any or not a want to optimize, or they're just not aware that it's optimal or more tactical. It gives them a more tactical advantage to just use it for attack rolls, saving throws, heal checks, right? Because saving it to heal them, it doesn't necessarily stop the monster from attacking. And if you just give them the bardic inspiration die, and then the fighter uses it to kill, like attack the monster, a dead monster is better than healing than a healing spell a lot of the time. So just think about it. Oh, what's going on, kid? We're still on Bard. We're still on Bard. We're gonna speed through Bard a little bit because so far, like, just first impressions of like stuff they're announcing and they're changing and reverting back to Bard to kind of how it was. I never really had a problem with Bard as I played it. Bard is actually probably one in my top 5 favorite classes to play because it does have a lot of utility and mix and matches. I'm a I like playing melee spellcasters, and Bard kind of gives me that ability to do that. Especially Sword Bard. Sword Bard's probably one of my favorite subclasses in 5e. So like, and then being a party face, have access to all the spells, and be supportive, and then still being able to like hit people with a sword. I seeing the changes to Bard and kind of making them a heal, more centered as a heal bot support. Seeing that kind of step back and we're like, yeah, we're just gonna stick to what we originally had because it wasn't that bad. I think Bard's in a good spot. I like the changes of these spell classes, being able to pick start off and pick your different spell list. That opens up a lot of concepts for players to kind of like fine tune their character a lot more. Magical Secrets coming back. Okay, okay. What I want to do is I want to look at, okay, we're gonna look at Fauna Inspiration, Counter Charm, and then we'll look at Word of Creation. And then what we'll do is also look at College of Dance for the Bard, and then we'll move on to the next class. Okay. Fauna Inspiration, you also regain all expended uses of Bardic Inspiration when you finish a short rest. Okay. In addition, if you have no uses of Bardic Inspiration left, you can give yourself one use by expending a spell slot. You can do so only once per turn. Okay. This is fine. They allow you in a way to still do your Bard thing, especially in situations in between short rests where you kind of just like blow your load and don't have any more Bardic Inspirations. You can still do your Bard thing if you still have spell slots, right? So, it's a cool change. It just opens up another level of resource management that you, as a Bard player, you're gonna have to grapple with. But it's not bad. I think even when in my experience playing Bard, there wasn't really ever a time where I didn't like tap out of my Bardic Inspiration, where I didn't feel like I couldn't I didn't have it available. Even as a Sword Bard, and Sword Bard tends to play a little bit more selfish with Bardic Inspiration die. Even then, I never felt that I was ever low on Bardic Inspiration. So I don't mind this change though, because it's like it allows you to like go ahead and use them more, and freeze that up. And it's like, and it kind of incentivizes you. It's like, hey, you can use your bardic inspiration die, and you can still use them even if you run out. Just got to spend spell slots. You know. Okay. My only issue is that everyone forgets about their inspiration. I actually kind of like the idea of the last UA and it being a reaction. Kind of wish they kept that. Yeah. So that's one of the things I under, and I think you you missed it right before I said that. I get it too, because it was like one of those things. My party, despite us playing for as long as we have together for 5e, whoever plays a bard will hand out bardic inspiration, and then the player that has it will sometimes forget until somebody else says, "Hey, you have the die," you know. So the reaction based change was neat, but it also was counter to flavor, to the narrative, right? So it made it so that you should use it, and you would use it when you needed to use it. But it also went against the idea of like you're taking the time to inspire your party. So um, for me, I think I lean towards the mechanic, not so much needing to remind people to use it, is the party needs to pay attention. The party should pay attention, you know. But yeah, I get that point. Like, yeah, I don't disagree with you that it wasn't that bad. But also at the same time, okay, so now we got counter term that got moved to reaction, right? So then at the same time, you probably would have, if these were both reactions now, you would have two competing features, and you would have to decide, okay, which one am I going to use, right? And then also, since bardic inspiration would have been on a reaction, okay, well, is it, what kind of like option paralysis will you have? Because it's like, do you use your reaction to bardic inspiration? Do you use your option to counter charm, or do you use your option to cast shield or counterspell? You know, which type? How are you going to use your reaction? Am I moving it back to how it was? One, it's because people already kind of franchise players already know how it works, and it's more like remember, fool, remember that you have your bardic inspiration die, and just having the table like act to that. Counter charm getting this buff and becoming a reaction is pretty sick. And then it still opens you up to play of like, do you counterspell? Do you cast shield? Even though like people hate those spells, it's like there's still, Bard is very much like a playmaker kind of support class. So like that opens that up to you. Oh, don't worry about spamming of text, man. Go for it. We're all here to have a conversation. So yeah, don't worry about spamming text, man. It's all good. Yeah, I want to get to Druid. I've seen some discussions with Druid that I want to see, because yeah, some interesting stuff. Okay, let's counter charm. Like I already said, it works. It's cooler. You don't have to spend your whole action to do this. It doesn't feel like a very glanced over subclass, or excuse me, a glanced over class feature, where it doesn't necessarily work when you need it to work. Because like I said before, you'll more than often you get in these situations where you have to rely on meta knowledge to know that the creature has charming or frightened conditions, right? Or if you don't, you have to see it in play, and then by the time you can actually do counter charm, it might be too late because you might be charmed or frightened yourself. So it's one of those things. It didn't work where you needed it to work. So now this gives Bard a more playmaker role, where it's like, oh, my buddy, my barbarian's getting frightened, or my barbarian's getting charmed, he's gonna go attack us. I counter charm. Boom. Keep the barbarian in the game. So yeah, I like the change of counter charm. Also gives them a reaction based feature. It's fine. Words of creation now. You have mastered 2, the prime words of creation, the words of life and death. You therefore always have power word heal and power word kill spells prepared. And when you cast either spell, you can target second creature with the spell, provided the creature's within 10 feet of the first target. Oh my god. Oh. Oh, pretty much the way I'm seeing this is flavored as like powerful poems, powerful music, powerful songs that can create or can kill. Oh god. That's funny. Okay. Yeah, okay. I like the flavor of this. Is just for me. It's like okay, it is a little bit surprising, but it does. I can't even evaluate like if this is just a good capstone, but flavor wise, it's kind of it's kind of sick. I I could just imagine like a bard that's inspired just like as a full metal goth, full hair metal, or like just full on like death metal bard, like that inspired character that is just up there and just like and it just sings a massive song that and a power word kills somebody. You rock them to death. That's funny. All I can say about it is like it's just the imagery that it evokes. I think that's what I'm leaning towards. Is like okay, like you could just yeah, it's just you have these songs of power, words of creation. That's it's an interesting way to take like some sort of aspect in the fantasy of the bard where they learn like how to weave words of power together and how they instill that into their stories, into their music, and that's how they develop and use their magic. It just seems like putting this at the end is like bringing it to the putting it more to the forefront, and then instead of something that's very much more subtle throughout the class. It's interesting. It's interesting. I like how it invokes like immediately it invoked the character ideas for me, despite never being able to play up 20th level because Wizards of the Coast doesn't support high level play. So, but still, it's like something cool to see. Like uh, so it evokes ideas. I was pleasantly surprised they moved all the subclass levels back to 2014 version to facilitate backwards compatibility, at least semi-compatible. Yeah, and that's a big win. I know there's a portion of the we're going to keep bringing this up because it is a big point of discussion, at least in the circles. I think you and I are in, Ked, and we're just seeing a lot of these communities really argue and you'd be frustrated because they wanted like massive changes, which is very very rare. Most people don't want those changes. But I've just been very seeing to some extent, and then yeah, like this is a big for me. It's a big win. Like people want backwards compatibility. I've said, like you guys, we've all invested a lot of money into the game, and when they were floating like floating the the RP or the PR, excuse me, they're floating that PR spiel of like the game is going to be backwards compatible, and then we see these first playtests roll out, and player options were not backwards compatible. You know, a lot of us were just like, "Hey, what the heck?" Like, you guys said it was going to be backwards compatible. You guys said my PlayStation 1 games were going to work on my PlayStation 2, but you lied. Well, now we kind of have a I think it was a PlayStation 4 situation where some PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 games worked on the system, right? We're getting that kind of situation right now. So, well, I'm not mad about the changes to some of the classes that got those level 1 and 2 switches though. Cleric was a big win in my book. Third level. Okay, we're gonna look at college dance. Okay, and I'm looking at this too because I just picked up Indestructible Boy's bundle for his three class bundle between the dancer, the merchant, and the was the other and the alchemist. So I've been flipping through them, like, and just kind of glancing over them. I haven't had the freaking time to really dive in. And I also have Cypher System books I got to dive into too. But yeah, like I have a lot of stuff going on, man. Too addicted to Diablo. That's my problem. And I got Final Fantasy 16 to beat. Too addicted, man. Many games. Well, yeah. Tangent aside, it's interesting. I picked up this bundle, and then we have a subclass for the bard that's introducing another performing art to the class. So dazzling footwork. Your practice of dance gives you the ability to gracefully dodge and make agile strikes. While you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, you gain the following benefits. Okay, you get armor defense, your dex plus your charisma modifier. You get agile strikes when you expend a use of your bardic inspiration as a part of your action, a bonus action or reaction. You can make one unarmed strike as a part of that action, bonus action or reaction. Okay. Then you get bardic damage. You can use dexterity instead of strength for the attack rolls of your unarmed strikes. And when you deal damage with an unarmed strike, you can deal bludgeoning damage equal to a roll of your bardic inspiration die plus your dexterity modifier. This roll doesn't expend the die. Interesting. Okay, let's read the other third little feature. We're kind of getting some monkey vibes. We're getting some monk vibes off this dancer. Okay, inspiring movement. When an enemy you can see ends its turn within 5 feet of an ally of yours who is within 60 feet of you, you can use your reaction and expend one use of your bardic inspiration die to move up to half your speed. Then roll your bardic inspiration die, and the ally can move up to a number of feet equal to 5 times the number rolled. None of this features movement provokes opportunity attacks. Okay, so inspired movement, you're dancing with an ally. You're doing dance moves with an ally. Okay, so interesting. Okay, so let's go back to dazzling footwork. Like I said, we're getting some monk vibes off this. So one thing I want to look at, unarmed strikes. Okay, so hold on. Well, the reason I want to look at unarmed strike rules. Okay. Unarmed strike rules are not there. Okay. So I'm gonna make the assumption unarmed strike rules will still work how they currently are working from the previous playtest. They allow you to shove and allow you to grapple. So Dancer Bard looks pretty sick. I'm gonna be honest. Okay, you can use your dex instead of strength for the attack rolls of your unarmed strikes. I'm assuming this applies to grapples and shoves. But please correct me if I'm wrong, or if it just applies to the attack roll. But if it applies to that, okay. A dancer bard ends up becoming a pretty good melee controller at this point, because okay, you can use your dex for this as you grapple. You can grapple and shove people. You can flavor this as you're tripping them, or you're holding on to them to dance. But okay, not mad at this. It's honestly unarmed strikes getting that upgrade to include grapple and shoves in there as a part of an unarmed strike is probably one of my favorite changes coming for 5e. It just opens up a lot, and it turns classes that rely on it, like the monk, and we'll get to, into gives them a lot more control and manipulation on the battlefield that they currently don't really have, or currently just rely on stunning strike to do for a monk. Seeing this in a dancer inspired class is interesting. But also what I'm looking at, the bardic damage for unarmed strikes doesn't scale. So you can use a dexterity instead of your strength for attack rolls of your or unarmed strikes, and when you deal damage, with an unarmed strike, you can deal bludgeoning damage equal to your bardic inspiration die plus your dexterity modifier. So the way they scale this one is it's going to scale with your bardic inspiration dice. So at third level, is this going to do a d6 at least? Okay, yeah. So it'll do a d6, and yeah, it scales up. So the damage for this is already better than current monk. But if I, to be honest, no spoilers. I'm just gonna think the monk got the upgrade and now has a d6 hit die. So I'm a yeah, for their damage on their unarmed strikes. I'm assuming. Inspired movement's pretty sick. I think repositioning features kind of do get looked over a bit. Part of it too is because since everybody has opportunity attack, people tend to not want to move, and that's comparing this to playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition, where only certain classes have access to opportunity attacks. It opens up movement, and movement becomes a large part of combat in that system. And at 5e, it's not as powerful because everybody has attack of opportunity, so everybody tends to clump up. But repositioning is valuable, and this one allowing attacks of opportunity not to you don't provoke opportunity attacks. Does have some movement. You can actually reposition yourself to put you more engaged and with the enemies, since this looks to be a more melee focused subclass compared to, and actually again allows you to reposition your ally. That's not bad either. I like this. Pretty much you're dancing and coordinating your dance with your ally. That's what that kind of reminds me of. It's not bad. All right, so at 6th level, we got leading evasion. When you're subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, instead you take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and you take only half damage if you fail. If any creatures within 5 feet of you are making the same dexterity saving throw, you can share this benefit with them for that save. You can't use this feature if you have the capacitated condition. Okay, so it gives you evasion and allows you to give evasion to another ally, but that's within 5 feet of you. You're playing a supportive role without really expending resources. It's only going to be active if you constantly get targeted with dexterity saving throws, or your allies are targeted with that. Pretty much, you're going to be the good fireball protector. You're just going to sit there and protect your team from fireball. Okay. This feature is only going to be as active as gameplay allows it to be. It is entirely DM dependent. I think it's okay. Very protective. You don't really have to do much. You just have to be in there. Only reason I like it's solid. Again, you're protecting each other from fireball. But also for me, I find mechanics where you just have to be in the right place at the right time, like the paladin, or a little boring, because there really isn't any activeness. You're just kind of just like, I'm here. So not bad, but not really inspiring either, or for like what I'm looking for or wanting. So let's see what the other 6th level feature is. Tandem footwork. When you roll initiative, you can spend 1 use of your bardic inspiration die if you don't have the incapacitated roll. Excuse me, you don't have the incapacitated condition. When you do so, roll your bardic inspiration die and choose a number of creatures within 60 feet of yourselves, up to a number equal to your charisma modifier. Each of them gains a bonus to their initiative equal to the number rolled. Okay. Interesting. I have not got to monk yet. We'll get there. Don't worry. Okay, interesting. Pretty much this is another use of your bardic inspiration die to pretty much bump you up on the initiative, like pretty much bump your team up for the initiative to guarantee you're getting ahead of everybody. I don't mind this. You don't see too many features that across like most of the classes that kind of like mess with everybody's initiative. Like you there's a few subclasses that just bump your own initiative. So that's fine. Like that's cool. I think these two together are like a solid 6. Like this one, leading evasion is only going to be as active as the game allows it to be active, or how your DM runs encounters. And 10 of footwork is going to be like a little bit more active, and you're going to kind of like those really important fights where you guys really need to go first. 10 of footwork will probably come in clutch. Yeah. So far, like so far, the College of Bard, the College of Dance subclass is very much a movement, highly mobile class that is going to be a melee support where you're really going to be shoving, grappling, repositioning your allies, and making sure that you're this kind of a speedster class in a way too, with your 6th level features. And then 14th level, you get Irresistible Dance. So you always have the auto's Irresistible Dance spell prepared. You can cast it without spending a spell slot once you cast a spell. In this way, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. You can also restore your use of the feature by expending 4 uses your Bardic Inspiration die, no action card. Ooh, that's a lot of die to be dumping into this. You got a dance party? So let's look at, I just need to see. Auto's Irresistible Dance. What is it? Okay, you can just automatically, or creature fails a okay. Okay, so creature has to make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they have to use all of its movement to dance without leaving its space, and has disadvantage on dexterity saving throws and attack rolls. While the target is affected by the spell, other creatures have advantage on attack rolls made against it. As an action, a dancing creature must make a wisdom saving throw to regain control of itself. On a successful save, the spell ends. Oh, that's funny. So you automatically just force somebody to dance. I don't know if have you guys in the chat, anybody's played Michael Jackson's Moonwalker on the Sega? I know I'm dating myself, but have you guys played it? So it's pretty much Irresistible Dance. Auto's Irresistible Dance is pretty much like the end of every third stage on that on that game, where as Michael Jackson you go around, you have your pretty much your magic bar, and then you spend it and you force the entire stage to dance with you. That's pretty much what Irresistible Dance is. You only targeted one person, but that's pretty much what it is. Yeah, if I wouldn't get DMCA'd, I would play it for you guys. That's pretty much what it is. It's a Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is probably one of the greatest Sega games ever. All MIDI style like Thriller and Bad album music. Sick. It is a very sick game. You get to be Robo Michael. You go save Annie. All right. Okay. So College of Dance is pretty interesting. Again, it's a highly mobile, monk-inspired subclass where you're really going to be about speeding your team up at level 6, but then mainly about repositioning and being more of a supportive grapple and shove sort of base subclass. So that's how I'm seeing it. Is really how you're going to be playing this with your unarmed strikes. Yeah, you're going to be able to like go hand to hand with people. But I can imagine seeing this. You're really going to be a strong support. You're not going to be like a heavy damage dealer. Yeah, your damage scales, but what I'm noticing is you don't get extra attack, right? I just need to make sure. Don't want to make sure. Okay, yeah, you don't get extra attack, so you're not really going to be there to be attacking at the forefront. Your main thing isn't going to be attacking enemies, which you're probably going to want to be doing with your agile strikes. If we're looking at optimal, quote unquote optimal, is shoving and grappling, right? Because of how unarmed strikes now includes shoving and grappling, you're going to be using your dex for this. What's going on, Fallen? We're still on bar, but we're wrapping up, and we're gonna move on to the next one right now. But again, so you're gonna be more of a supportive role if you're gonna be using melee combat to get in there. Shovel and grab is probably gonna be like your best thing to do. Because we don't have extra attack, so you're not really gonna be wanting to attack. At the same time, you can have somebody shoveled or grappled, or both, and then you're gonna be casting spells, and then reposition your party to move them away or into combat, depending on what you're trying to do. And then speeding everybody up at 6th level, and then pretty much have a on cooldown like force CC move. Though it can throw out more attacks with reactions. Okay, then maybe I skipped over that part. When you expend a use of your bardic inspiration as a part of an action, a bonus action, or reaction. Okay. So in a way, okay. In a way, you can get your quote unquote extra attack when you use a bardic inspiration as your bonus action, right? So you can make an attack, and then you use your bardic inspiration to give it to somebody, and you make another attack as your bonus action. Okay, that's how you're going to kind of get your extra attack. But even then, okay. Even then, I still think the bigger play is going to make this and move this into grapple and shove on that same turn. Right? You're gonna grapple shove on the same turn. And it's even okay. And it's even more dumb now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, you grapple, it's successful grapple on your attack. You bardic inspiration somebody as a bonus action, so you're giving them your bardic inspiration, and then as a part of that, you can make another unarmed strike, and then you just shove your target. So got to think about like in the terms of the action economy how that works. That is a lot. You're doing a lot on one turn, right? Grapple shove, give somebody a d6, or yeah, at this level, you're giving them a d6, which they can use at a later turn. And then here's the other thing. Okay, and then say it's your second turn. You cast a spell. You have this person grappled and shoved. You give another bardic inspiration to somebody else. You slap them while they're on the floor. And that will most likely have advantage because they're grappled and shoved on the floor because they're prone. It's pretty. Do I think this like evokes dancing in a way? It not exactly. It evokes movement, which I guess this is how they're translating the idea of dance. But then again, I'm comparing it to Indestructible Boys Dancer which is a whole class dedicated to that is incorporating like different choreography in different like ways to dance. You know, that is a lot more flavorful and evoking a lot more fantasy in this way. So they're trying to, and in this case, you're in condensing the idea of dance into one, and it's up to the player to really figure out how they want to do this and convey this. Do I think it's bad? No, I think up to like for me, the capstone subclass feature is a little weak. Even though it's really strong, irresistible dance, you're just like, okay, fail wisdom saving throw, you're automatically just CC'd. You're stuck there. The enemy's just stuck there grooving, and everybody gets to just wail on them. But like, you just look at all this other stuff you're going to be able to do. Pretty sick. Pretty sick. I like. I'm a College of Dancer enjoyer. I actually like this. Is a lot of. It's a different way to present a melee subclass for the bard, especially like compared to College of Valor, right? So I like it. It's very movement based. It's still a supportive driven subclass that is really about, it adds another a level of play that, I'm gonna be honest, it reminds me of the luchador, which is what you wanted to do, which was to grapple and shove people and kind of keep people locked in. It kind of adds that kind of play style, but also you get the ridiculousness of throwing spells on top of all that. Not bad. That's not bad. It's cool. It's interesting. Yeah, leading evasion is fitting and flavorful to subclass. I wasn't too big on it, but I don't disagree with you on there. Just because I really like a player to be more active and not just stand there, but it's not a bad feature at all. You're giving evasion to yourself and to everybody, so it's like, that's no win. Ironically, it's way more tactical than Valor. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move to cleric because we still got a lot of classes. Again, I want to dedicate a lot more time to monk when we get there. So with cleric, cleric. Let's see what the updates brought, and we'll just hone in on a couple of aspects of it. All right. So the big thing with cleric, let's see what their design updates are. Divine Order, formerly called Holy Order, so now it is Divine Order, has moved from second level to first level. The Thaumaturge option has been redesigned to include elements from the former Thaumaturge and Scholar options. Okay. All right, we'll check that out. Spellcasting has one noteworthy change. Spell preparation is no longer tied to the level of your spell slots. Okay. Excuse me. All right, Channel Divinity has returned to second level, and its number of uses now increases with your cleric level and isn't based on your proficiency bonus. In addition, you regain one use whenever you finish a short rest. The healing and damage advice spark has also changed, and Turn Undead now uses the Incapacitate and Frighten condition. Finally, the multi-classing sidebar has a new rule for Channel Divinity. Okay, we'll take a look at Channel Divinity. We'll take a look at Divine Order. Levels now match the level progression in 2014 Cleric, except for the subclasses now starting at their level. Okay. We'll also just take a look at probably the first subclass that pops up, just to see if they changed by moving the subclass to third level, if it's still roughly the same as it was presented in the original where they got the feature at the first level. And if that's the case, then cleric is pretty much an easy transition where you just move a specific third level feature or first level feature into third level. So that I want to just look at that a little bit. Smite Undead now uses your wisdom modifier rather than your proficiency bonus. We also have clarified that this damage doesn't end the turn effect on an undead. Okay, Blessed Strikes now lets you choose Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting. In 2014, a subclass gave you one of those features in the playtest. You can now get a choice. That's fine. But more flexibility. Immune is a new 9th level feature. Improved Blessed Strikes is a new 14th level feature. Okay. Dang. Okay, there's some bit of reworks for the cleric. Intervention has been redesigned to allow, Divine Intervention and Greater Divine Intervention have been redesigned to allow reliable results. This was the most requested change for these features. Interesting. Greater Divine Intervention has returned to 20th level, replacing Epic Boon. Okay. Okay, we'll look at... Ooh, okay. I am a monk enjoyer. I'm a monk enjoyer because when I was 4 or 5 years old, I learned and entered martial arts. I practiced martial arts all the way, karate specifically, until I was like 15 or 16. So it took up a large chunk of my life. Monk and martial arts inspired like classes I always tend to gravitate to. So I'm really looking forward to what changes they made to monk to make them a bit more viable in 5e. One of my favorite characters I played was a Kensai monk for my Ravnica game. So we're gonna, can I engage with an audience? Okay, we're gonna start a poll. on. I'm putting this in here. Okay, cool. Do you like the mystical side more, or do you focus mostly on the martial arts side? It really depends on the character, but I think the mystical, spiritual nature of the monk and its flavor does a disservice to the class because it does lean into very like unsensitive, and racist tropes and just general racism regarding Asians. So I tend to just like not care about that aspect of the class. I do lean more towards the martial arts side, um, just because of my own background and familiarity with martial arts. Yeah, one thing, like the biggest thing I'm looking forward to with the monk is that it is no longer just Asian the class. That it is much more than just being shoehorned, like trying to shoehorn like various Asian cultures into a class, and it becomes very much its own identity, and that it can include multiple backgrounds, and it moves away from harmful stereotypes and tropes. So that's like the big thing I'm trying to really look for. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we got trickery and war tide. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we'll get the monk's the big one. Okay. So we got okay. So divine order was holy order that got repositioned. It was one of my favorite features from the previous introduction of the new cleric, and it looks like they've condensed the features down to two. So we had originally, what did they say that we had? We had protector, we had thaumaturge, and then we also had. Where are you at? Where are you at? Okay. And then we also had a scholar option. So the one was protector was going to be more sort of that war cleric, where you're going to be more able to fight and cast divine spells. Then thaumaturge was going to lean more towards a spellcasty blasty cleric, and then scholar was going to give you access to spells. Now it looks like they just straight, or excuse me, scholar was going to give you access to skills, not spells, skills. And it looks like they just condensed thaumaturge and scholar into one to make it more enticing. But also, it looks like this is the only time you get to choose it now. Originally, in the other cleric, you got to choose. You chose one at the beginning, and at a later level, you chose the other. You chose another one out of the ones you haven't chose. So this is. I actually like this change more. Because pretty much there's only two kinds of cleric options that are really there, right? You either want to play white mage, where you're slinging holy spells, you're slinging divine spells, or you want to play a war cleric and beat face with a hammer, a mace, and cast divine spells. It's pretty much like the two fantasies that are really coming out of like cleric priest esque classes. So, protector, train for battle. You gain martial weapon proficiency and heavy armor training. Sick. And then thaumaturge, you know one extra cantrip from the divine spell list. In addition, your mystical connection to the divine gives you a bonus to your intelligence religion checks. The bonus equals to your wisdom modifier. Sick. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm a little. I like the white mage angle that, or priest angle that thaumaturge is giving. I kind of wish that the intelligence to religion checks was just a baseline thing. Or yeah, you can add your wisdom modifier to your religion checks, was just baseline for the cleric completely. That just make it a thing instead of just like making it exclusive to thaumaturge cleric. Because that's one of the biggest hangups we've had at even at our table when anybody's played a cleric. We're like, okay, roll a religion check. You fail it because you're not high int, you're not high intelligence, but you pray a lot, you know. So I kind of just wish that was baseline for clerics as a whole. Um, but also not mad. Just that's the only thing I would probably change on this. Still, I like the option of being able to choose what kind of cleric you want to be. I think this opens up a lot of flavor, a lot of character potential to play with a lot of different concepts, especially if you're going to delve into and utilize different kinds of like real world mythology to inspire your characters, or if you're using the mythology or lore of the settings that you're playing in, whether they're official or homebrew. Opening this up allows you to play different kinds of like clerics that follow different kinds of gods that may have a different philosophy but share the same domain, right? A divine order looks fine to me and needs to be at first level if the armor is going to be an option. Yeah. So yeah, this is slam dunk in my book. I like this. Really like it. Okay, so we're gonna end the poll. We're gonna look at trickery after all this. Okay, channel divinity. Channel divinity. You gain the ability to channel divine energy directly from the outer planes, using that energy to fuel magical effects. Excuse me. You start with 2 such effects, Divine Spark and Turn Undead, each which is described below. Each time you use your channel divinity, you choose which effect to create and gain additional effects options at higher levels in this class. Cool. Move this back to 2nd level. You regain 1 expended use when you finish short rest, and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Okay, and you gain additional uses as you level. Divine Spark. It's a magic action. You point your holy symbol at another creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself and focus divine energy at them. Roll a d8 and add your wisdom modifier. You either restore hit points to the creature equal to that total, or force the creature to make a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes a necrotic or radiant damage of your choice equal to that total. On a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage, rounded down. Interesting. Okay. I think the damage of the healing got nerfed, right? I remember that it used to do a lot more. So now it is actually scaled and it's fine. It gives you a base healing feature, which you're probably going to be using because it's a lot more reliable. The additional damage is interesting, but I don't think it's like wowing anybody. It's just another option that you have at your disposal, but having a base option that you have a consistent heal, um, I believe is gonna make this feature a lot more active than it currently is in 5e, where you're kind of just relying it on turn dead and then for your subclass feature. So then we got turn undead, and functions as it always does. As each undead within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails its saving throw, as a frightened incapacitate conditions for 1 minute, this effect ends early on a creature. If it takes any damage, you have the incapacitation condition or you die. Okay, so it's no longer CR tied. That's another change to turn undead. So it's a lot more reliable. It's going to be a lot more active. I think something when I noticed with Tales of the Valiant, when their attempt to make their version of Channel Divinity a lot more active, they went a different route. And then it dawned on me, yeah, like how often does a cleric really use your Channel Divinity? And most of the time it depended on how good it was as a subclass feature. Divine Spark now giving you a reliable heal that you can always fall back on, even if it's minimal. It's just enough to either get the person back up from 0, get them off the floor, whack-a-mole, but they get up and they're good to go. And then now this change to being able to just target any undead, no matter the CR, makes turn undead better. So I don't mind the changes to Channel Divinity. It's a lot more appealing, and it looks like it's going to be a lot more active feature going forward. And is not going to be entirely reliant on whether your Channel Divinity for your subclass is the better option. You always have that pocket heal. That's really, really good. Level 5th level, Smite Undead. You can use your turn undead to feature to smite the undying. Whenever you use your turn undead, you can roll a number of d8s equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum of 1, and add the rolls together. Each undead that fails its saving throw against that use of turn undead takes radiant damage equal to the rolls total. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I think this is reminds me of what originally was divine, the divine spark feature. They kind of just rolled it into the, I think, the 5th level. My only issue with this, it is so coded into a specific enemy type that a DM, this is only going to be active if the DM puts this into your game. And it kind of like, it kind of sucks because if you're in a situation where there's no undead, and then you're not playing in a campaign that has undead, this kind of sucks. But it's very, very strong. It's very, very strong when you can pull it off. But at the same time, this is only going to be good in those cases where, yeah, you're fighting massive hordes of undead, or you're just fighting undead in general. Yeah. Unfortunately for me, like I feel this is going to be more dead, like more of a dead feature than it is an active feature, because clerics, the cleric archetype can fit in any kind of game, and you have enough different. You have a variety of domains that can apply to different kinds of campaigns, but not all of those campaigns are going to feature undead. So I would very much like this to either include, like you said, fall in another creature type like fiends, which is flavorful. It is something Tales of the Valiant did with their Channel the Divinity feature to allow Turn Undead to also, um, it's called Turn the Profane, and they also can target fiends. Very much flavorful, opens up the option, or they give them, they do something else and maybe have this to some extent apply to their other feature, Divine Spark. Like tie this Smite Undead as Smite, because it just sucks because this is going to be like, I'm seeing this in actual play. This is going to be a lot a more dead feature than it is an active one. That well, flavorful. It's in terms of play, it kind of sucks because it might not. It's totally game dependent. And that for me, it's like that's not something you really want in a base class. Yeah, clerics can be evil and holy too, so it can't just be an anti-fate thing. Yeah, that's true. Then you get more, I guess, darker domains, more evil leaning domains, clerics, nefarious clerics. That Smite Undead isn't even flavorful for them either. And then if you add fiends, of course, yeah, I would definitely. I don't like Smite Undead feature. I think it needs to be tied to maybe Divine Spark instead. All right, Blessed Strikes, Divine. Okay, you get to choose the option. All right. Let's see. We'll just look at Divine Intervention or Commune and Divine Intervention to kind of just see what they've changed. In the past, you reached Divine on Commune, Divine Source of your power through prayer. Now you can also have a brief conversation. You have the Commune spell prepared. Cool, flavorful, not bad. Interact with your DM, get to RP. Never mad at that. Divine Intervention, you can call on your deity or pantheon to intervene on your behalf. As a magic action, choose any divine spell of 5th level or lower that doesn't require a reaction to cast. As a part of the same action, you cast that spell without expending a spell slot or needing material components. You can't use this feature again until you finish long rest. Cool. Just straight up, I'm casting a fifth level divine spell or lower for free once, because Bahamut said I could. It's a power spike. Like it definitely is that you just get one free 5th level or lower spell to cast. Not exciting, but still good. Still good. Okay. Let's see. Greater Divine Intervention. You're able to call on an even more powerful Divine Intervention when you use your Divine Intervention feature. You can choose Wish. When you select the spell, if you do so, you can't use Divine Intervention to finish it. 2d4 long rest when you cast Wish. With this feature, you are immune to the stress caused by using Wish to do something other than casting a spell. Interesting. Okay, so they're getting rid of that D20 roll. If you low your level or lower, you get to ask your DM, or you call upon your god to do something cool, and leaving up to DM Fiat to like just baking those features into a class and giving you like a straight option. Wish still like fulfills that. We're gonna work with the DM to kind of figure something out. Just now, there isn't really a roll included for chance, which makes it more reliable. That's one way to solve the problem of this. As a 20th level feature, don't mind it. It's powerful. It's still very narrative driven, because that's essentially what you're using. You're trying to cast a wish, or casting a prayer to your god to pretty much do something you need in that moment. But since wish is a bit open ended, you can kind of you can do a lot with that. So it is very, very game changing. Excuse me, a level, but it is also level 20. Yeah, it fulfills the fantasy that the divine intervention had, and it again makes it more reliable. I don't think divine intervention at 10th level fulfills that fantasy in the same way, because you're just getting a 5th level spell or lower. You cast it for free. I don't feel that is divine intervention, but definitely feel that is the case for the 20th level feature. Yeah. So yeah, not bad. I think I would want something a little bit more flavor or enlightening flavor for the 10th level divine intervention feature. And 5th level smite undead is kind of just a dead feature, unless like it's really highly dependent on your campaign. I wish this is either tied into divine spark and the damage version to kind of like just give it like another incentive to really use it later. But yeah, the smite undead is probably my least favorite feature out of this. Divine intervention isn't bad. You get a 5th level or lower spell casted for free. Never bad. I wish that was a little bit more flavorful. And yeah. So okay, let's look at the changes to we said trickery 1. So let's go to trickery. So I'm going to pull up. Okay, what I want to do, I want to pull up. We're gonna pull up classic. Pull up classic. I want to just really what I'm looking for the cleric is how identical is the level 1 feature. The level 1 features for the domain subclass features are compared to the newer ones, because if they're pretty much identical, maybe they're going to have some like balance tweaks. Then transitioning your character over, or converting previous subclass features or subclasses of the cleric domain over to new cleric, new 5e cleric, 2024 cleric is going to be a really, really easy thing. Okay, so I don't really have a good way to show this on the side by side, but on screen. So I'll just keep it on my screen side by side. So let's start off. So with trickery, mainly changes that they did to trickery are spells. Domain spells has an updated spell list. Blessing of the Trickster can target up to someone up to 30 feet away, and clerics can use it on themselves. Invoke Duplicity no longer requires concentration. It requires a bonus action rather than an action. In addition, you teleport when you first use it, not just when you move the illusion later. Okay. Trickster's Magic is a new feature that replaces Cloak of Shadows, which was poorly rated, and domain spells now include invisibility. Divine Strike has been replaced by Blessed Strikes in the base class. Improved duplicity was poor rated and now has entirely new functionality. Okay. So we're not going to look at the entire subclass. I just want to look at what third level gives us and is it comparable to first level currently. So domain spells, Charm Person, Disguise Self, Invisibility, Pass Without Trace. Okay, so it's giving us so what it's doing is still giving us the first level spells that we would normally get access to. And we're also getting the second level spells that we would normally get at third level. Cool. And then we got Hypnotic Pattern at fifth level and Non-Detection. This replaces Blink and Dispel Magic. Okay. Seventh level, we get Confusion and Dimension Door. Confusion replaces Polymorph. Okay. And then we get Hold Monster and Mislead, which replace Dominate Person and Modify Memory. Okay. So we do get some spell changes. It seems like they're going more with the obviously stealthy, roguey based gameplay and escape based gameplay, as opposed to like, I guess from what I'm seeing, which was more control based as you got into the higher levels, which also I think like Polymorph is really, really strong. So that is a power nerf. But in terms of flavor, it makes a lot more sense that they included and changed these spells. Yeah, Pass Without Trace is still stupid good. Yeah. Yeah, you're getting a lot of good spells up front. Hypnotic Pattern's really, really good. Invisibility, Pass Without Trace, really, really strong. It's just, yeah, you're losing Polymorph and you lose Modify Memory. So you do lose some power at the end, which is made for up in the higher levels with that. Okay, but still, you're still getting a spell list that you normally get at first. Just move to third. Okay, an expanded spell list. Blessing of the Trickster. As an action, you can choose yourself or a willing creature within 30 feet of yourself to gain advantage on dexterity stealth checks. This blessing lasts for 1 hour until you use this feature again, so you can target yourself or an ally. This is better because it actually makes it active because you probably will be using it on yourself. Say you want to play a more melee focused trickery domain. You're getting you're getting heavy armor, right? And you want to be more stealthy. A stealthy cleric. What I'm trying to look for is what kind of like armor proficiencies you're normally going to get as a cleric. Okay, or you still can play stealth and do medium armor, but to say you're going to be like a heavy armor trickery domain cleric, I don't know why you would. You're giving yourself advantage now negates the disadvantage that you normally would get. So yeah, so there's that. But being able to actually use it on yourself is still good compared to blessing the trickster currently, where you can only apply it to an ally. As an action, you can choose yourself or a willing creature within 30 feet of yourself to gain advantage. This blessing lasts for an hour until you use this feature again. Yep, it's an infinite stealth advantage. Infinite stealth advantage. So cool thing is, like, this allows your cleric to play the scout dungeon, like the scout role a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure why it has a time limit when you can just reuse it. Yeah, yeah. The time limit is a little pointless because you can just recast it. Yeah, you just reuse it on yourself. But this does allow your cleric to play the scout role a bit, especially since you are going to have generally high wisdom, so you're going to be very, very perceptive. So you're going to be scout, kind of see what the hell's going on, and dip out. You're going to be really, really solid at this. Pretty much, you can now play a more roguey cleric with this. And then at third level, we also get Invoke Duplicity, which we normally would get at second level, which is a Channel Divinity feature. So this one still uses your Channel Divinity. You just get it at 3rd level. You can use your Channel Divinity to create an illusory duplicate of yourself. As a bonus action, you can spend 1 use of your Channel Divinity to teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see and create a perfect visual illusion of yourself in the space you left. The illusion lasts for 1 minute, but it ends early if you have incapacitate condition. Dismiss it as a bonus action while illusion persists. You gain the following benefits. You can cast spells as though you were in the illusion space, but you must use your own senses. Distract when you and your illusion are within 5 feet of a creature that can see the illusion. You have advantage on attack rolls against the creature, given how distracting the illusion is to the target. As a bonus action, you can move the illusion up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space. You can see that is within 120 feet of yourself, and you can then teleport, swapping places with the illusion. Oh my god. Okay. This seems cooler. The changes to this seem cooler. I'm not gonna lie. But in general, of how the conversion is to being backwards compatible, it is a lot easier just to, if certain subclasses don't make it into the newer player's handbook, it is a lot easier to just take the first 3 features you get into cleric and transition them over into new cleric. The only ones I think you're gonna have an issue with where that happens is any of them that give you any sort of like heavy armor proficiency, right? Because you can get that already at 1st or 2nd level, and I don't think the intention is to give if you're gonna take thaumaturge, you take heavy armor and martial weapon proficiency. That leads me to look at. I think we're just gonna peek into war domain a little bit, just to see how they kind of handle that. So we still got Guided Strike. You can use Channel Divinity for that. This. Okay. I think that's okay. That's how it is. You get the mastery property of one kind of simple or martial weapon. I think that's the thing. I think people that want to convert classes that have access or upgrades to martial weapons and heavy armor, pretty much just look at War Priest and give them pretty much the mastery property for a simple or martial weapon. I think that's a neat way to do that. Okay. Druid Ketup had mentioned Druid got eviscerated. The bonus action is short rest, long rest, and no longer requires an attack to use. That sounds like War Cleric exclusive though. It sounds like it is War Cleric exclusive now. But what I'm talking about is if, say, like Twilight Domain Cleric gives you, I believe, before I talk out of my ass, let me see the proficiencies. Gives you proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor, right? Well, you already get that if you pick the Protector option in Divine Order, right? So say Twilight Cleric doesn't make it into the base book, and you have a player that wants to play this subclass and you need to convert it. Well, my suggestion, just look at what War Priest does, at least this first function, right? Replace the proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor and give them a mastery property of a simple or martial weapon. That would be my suggestion. To replace the proficiency you would gain with martial weapons and heavy armor that you normally would get from Protector already. So that's why, like, you're trying to convert subclasses that don't really get features, you can do that instead. Yeah, like Forge and Tempest domain would get weapon mastery. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like those two would also extend it to those because they lean towards the more martial playstyle. So that would be something I would do, and maybe like have a small rider effect or an additional effect like this that it can be homebrewed, or you just give them this until they convert classes over. Yeah. Yeah, and even then too, maybe you can just skip that effect all entirely and just keep Eyes of Night, Vigilant Blessing, and Channel Divinity, and then the Twilight Domain spells. Like, pretty much, I think what you need to look at is how important the bonus proficiencies are when you're converting, and whether it's gonna matter. Because then, if you're looking at Twilight Domain, I think that's a good thing to look at and be like, okay, it doesn't need the bonus proficiencies. It does, so you don't need to convert and give them masteries. Instead, you can just give them the spells, Eyes of Night, Vigilant Blessing, and they get their Channel Divinity. They're good to go. All right, but yeah, Twilight. I know Twilight's not a good example completely because it's just busted. So it just busted. I think the proficiencies are mostly rolled into Holy Order and Divine Strike features. Yep, they are. Now they are. They will be. Okay, let's dive into Druid. I'd be fine if Twilight didn't get the weapon mastery, but I always thought it was weird that it was a martial cleric. Yeah, same. I often forget that it's a martial cleric, to be honest. Just because the thematics, the narrative behind it doesn't really seem like it leans that way. But the whole thematics and narrative behind that subclass, I'm like, I'm lost on it because I'm like, so are you the dark? Like you're the night cleric? Because Twilight isn't necessarily night. What are you supposed to be? Yeah. Okay, so where are the changes to Druid? So I think with the Druid, we'll just focus in on because Druid got a lot of changes. So it looks like Wild Shape is returned and is now channel, like has removed channel nature and is restored to Wild Shape. So one thing with the branding of the classes where they try to put them in these neat little boxes is that they were all supposed to share a core mechanic with each other, right? So we had the channel feature, which was introduced with the Druid, which was then turned into channel nature. And now it's been cut. So it looks like they are willing to step back and just like not go that route. And then just kind of revert back to what we know. So Wild Shape is now back at second level. Druidic now also makes sure you have a Speak with Animals prepared. Okay. Primal Order is a new first level feature which lets you improve your armor or weapon proficiencies or your spell casting. Ooh. Uh-oh. Am I going to start playing Druid now? Am I going to start playing Druid now? Do I have another class that lets me melee spellcast? What? That was like my biggest problem with Spore Druid. Spore Druid really leans into wanting you to play a melee spellcaster, but you end up playing midline because your features are tied to your tip HP, and you might not always be built in a way that has a high AC so that you can protect your tip HP. So, okay, we're gonna take a Primal Order. We'll take out Wild Shape because I know that was the biggest like change. Okay. Okay. From what it looks like, we will dive into Primal. We'll dive into Wild Shape, Primal Order. We'll look at Wild Resurgence and Elemental Fury. Yeah, that's where we're going to be looking for the Druid. But yeah, let's see. So Primal Order, it looks like this is going to be like the Divine Order from the Cleric. So now we get Magician. You know, one extra cantrip from the Primal spell list. Cool. In addition, your mystical connection to nature gives you bonus to your intelligence. The bonus equals your wisdom modifier. Same problem I have with the Divine Order one with Thaumaturge. Just make it baseline. All druids can use their wisdom modifier to do nature checks. It just makes a lot of sense. Warden, train for battle. You gain martial weapon proficiency with medium armor training. Okay, so this is medium armor. It's not heavy armor. It's medium armor specifically. Okay. Magician is a bad name. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like the Magician name, but there's only so many synonyms for magic person. But yeah. Okay, so this is just not mad at this. I really like features like this because it does open up character creativity You get to really fine tune the kind of character options you have. I think that was one of the things that it does get a little frustrating with 5e, since currently, like, certain character, and at least in official capacity, certain character fantasies aren't fulfilled. This is why people that are more narrative leaning driven, not necessarily optimized and min maxers, lords that are narrative do tend to multi-class, because they're trying to fit that exact concept, and that base classes don't always have those options available to them. So that's why you do see, like, maybe a one level dip to get armor proficiency or something like that, because they want to play, like, for example, if you want to play a like a sort of this nature based warrior that has, like, nature, the primal spells, but you don't want to play a ranger, and you don't want to play a cleric, like a nature cleric. So you multi-class druid and then fighter. This Having features like this now doesn't, not that it doesn't allow you, there's no incentive to actually do that, because you can just play that character concept from the get-go. Barb needs this for intimidation, ranger needs this for nature. Yeah. There's a lot of it makes a lot more sense that they include that kind of stuff in the other classes. I agree. They're probably trying to avoid words like shaman, my guess. Yeah. Yeah, probably possibly a that's one thing they probably could have had. They might have said shaman, or to some extent something like this, and then they had their sensitivity readers and cultural consultants look this over and be like, "Yeah, you can't do that. It's not a good look." Not mad at this. I like this feature. Magician probably needs a better name. And again, just like the cleric, just give this baseline to the class. Nobody's gonna be mad. Okay. Wild companion. Second level, you can summon a nature spirit that assumes an animal form to aid you. As a magic action, you can spend a spell slot or use wild shape to cast Divine Familiar without material components. When you cast the spell this way, the familiar's fey and it disappears. Okay, cool. For those that want to play like the pet druid, they have all the little animals. Okay, you get wild companion. Wild shape. Okay, this is the big change. So last time they gave us like base options that you like, this kind of flavorless stat boxes that sort of alluded to a kind of creature that we can kind of just reflavor over. It's something we've been seeing a lot in a lot of like subclasses, and people kind of called it when they were talking about wild shape, because people have strong feelings regarding wild shape of it working in a very cheesy way, where you have this really like hard to kill whack-a-mole problem with the druid in a gameplay design aspect of it, but then also the at the table problem, where it was an issue for players to really know what options they had at the table to really play or shape or change into. And it was up to the DM to kind of be like, oh, here's all these CR rated monsters that you're like beasts that you can actually transform into that fit with anything. And it was kind of just a pain, and not the options were just not available and easily accessible to the player. So they're trying to kind of answer those two. So they did go with the route of like, here's a base stat block that alludes to a type of creature that you can just reflavor, which is very, very boring, because people want to feel and do cool shit as the creature that they're shaping into. It's one thing to say that you're an owlbear, and it's one thing to feel and have features that give you the power, the good feelings that Dopium hit of being an owlbear at the table. So yeah. So let's see what wild shape is changed into. Wild shape: the power of nature infuses you, allowing you to assume the form of an animal. As a bonus action, you transform into a beast form that you have learned for this feature. Known forms below. You stay in the form for a druid. You stay in the form for a number of hours equal to half your druid level, or until you use wild shape again, have the incapacitate condition, or die. You can also leave the form early as a bonus action. Known forms: you start knowing 3 forms for this feature, chosen from among beast. You start knowing 3 forms for this feature, chosen from among beast stat blocks that have maximum challenge rating of 1/4 and lack of flying speed. Rather than choosing, you may start with a riding horse, spider, and a wolf. When you finish a long rest, you can replace one of your known forms with another eligible form. When you gain certain druid levels, you can learn additional forms, and the maximum challenge rating for your forms increases as shown in the beast shapes table. In addition to starting 8th level, you can adopt a form that has fly. Okay, number of uses. You can use wild shape twice. You gain 1 expended use when you finish a short rest. You gain all expended use when you finish a long rest. You gain additional uses when you reach certain druid levels, as shown in the wild shape column. Okay. Rules while transform. While in the form, you retain your personality, memories, and ability to speak, and the following rules apply. Your game statistics are replaced by the statistics of the beast, where you retain your hit points, hit die, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores. Class features, special traits, languages, and feats. You also retain your skill and saving throw. Excuse me. You also retain your skill and saving throw proficiencies and use your proficiency bonus for them. Okay, standard what we've seen for what we expect out of that wild shape part. Any changes in here? No spell casting, you can't cast spells, but transforming doesn't break your concentration on the spell you already casted or prevented you from taking actions that are part of a spell, such as call lightning, that you already casted. Dang. Okay. I know you could already do this, but been playing so much Diablo, and the druid in there, it's like, okay, they have a call lightning S spell, and then you transform into a bear as that spell's popping off, and you're just attacking the hell out of people. That's hilarious. So this just has reminded me of Diablo. Hey, what's going on, Synthetic Place? Thank you. I've taken a big break off of character builds for 5e. I think with the new update, I might dive back into them again. We'll see. I am taking some time to explore other systems right now and just kind of expanding beyond just D&D. But thank you. I definitely will say character builds are not off the table. Just I need a break from them right now. There's too many changes happening around all this that maybe this new update will reinvigorate me, and I might get back to that a little bit. All right, objects. Your ability to handle objects is determined by your form's limbs rather than your own. In addition, you choose whether your equipment falls to the ground in your space, merges into your new form, or is worn by it. Oh, I'm gonna change into a monkey, and it's gonna have a little costume. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for your support. Oh, as always, I 100% appreciate it. Changing the kind of content I do, shifting it and trying new stuff, is really scary, especially for all of us after the OGL. So thank you for supporting and tuning in. Okay, I like to change it. I like this object thing. I want to transform into a monkey. I'm gonna transform into an ape and just wear a little costume that I'm wearing. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Wild shape, it's better. I like it more than the other one from the last time they rolled this out, because now you don't really have bland options, but you do have limited options, and you're just not choosing whatever the hell you can. You have a specific set amount of forms. In a way, you're still not limited. You can change them on a long rest. Cool. So it kind of sort of solves the problem of it sort of solves the problem they have where you have all these options and the pretty much choice paralysis. It sort of addresses it in a halfway, but also still allows players to choose the forms they like and feel like the animals that they want to feel like, or the beast they want to feel like. So yeah, I did see you can change your form's known. Yeah. So when you finish a long rest, you can replace one of your known forms with another eligible form. So I think this is a good middle ground. I don't think people are going to be truly happy with what they're going to do with Wild Shape at all. I think this is a good middle ground to kind of give players that want to be able to feel like the animal, the beast that they want to feel like, while also giving players that are overwhelmed with the amount of choice that they have, limiting it that a bit so that it's not so daunting. Allows newer players to kind of like grasp, oh, I get to pick 3 animals at second level that I can change into. excuse me. That's easy. I want to be a bird. I want to be a wolf, a spider, and this. Yeah, for me, it's fine. Like it is a good middle ground. People are not going to be truly happy with it. I think people that want those base stat blocks, but I have an explosion of like options to completely modify it. 5e as a base game is not built in that way. In the same sense that a third party product allows a lot of hyper customization, or stuff like Pathfinder is built around like heavy customization and choice. And I think people need to realize that 5e isn't. 5e works because it is centered on some level of simplicity and rockability. Like for me, like looking at this from like trying to introduce a new player or casual players into this version of Wild Shape's a lot easier to understand. Yeah, yeah. This is way the player doesn't need to use a bunch of spend a bunch of time looking through the monster books. Agreed. I'm okay with this change to Wild Shape. It is not perfect, but it's way better than last time, and I think it does address to some extent the issues that Wild Shape currently has. All right, so 5th level, Wild Resurgence. You have no uses of Wild Shape left. You can give yourself 1 use by expending a spell slot. You can do so only once per turn. In addition, you can spend 1 use of Wild Shape to give yourself a 1st level spell slot, and you can do so again after you finish long rest. Okay, this is kind of sick for 2 reasons. Okay, this is sick. So allows you to continue to do your cool druid stuff that you want to do, and if you really want to be an animal and play into that, like bam, okay, you can do that. Sick. But for those that want to be the nature spellcast slinging primal druid, okay, well you just get a little bump and give yourself a little extra spell here. Yeah, that's the only thing. It is limited to once per long rest. That's kind of the downer compared to the other way around, where you can just kind of like continue dumping spell slots to give you additional Wild Shape. But again, that is a diminishing return because there's no additional bonuses if you dump a high level spell slot to continue to Wild Shape. But I will say this. This kind of opens up some potential design in that regard where, okay, you do Wild Resurgence and say you dump a higher level spell slot to Wild Shape, that you get additional benefits for doing so. That is something like for me, I'm looking at that. I'm like, that's some interesting. Like that's something they can play with in future design as another dial to tweak for those that want to change in animals. But yeah, they're the equivalence of that is at this point like you can constantly do it, but you're also losing resources and utility by doing so, and you get no benefit for changing a high level spell slot for a Wild Shape. Elemental Fury. Okay, Elemental Fury is just the druids. Is the druids version of the clerics thing. Okay. That's fine. It is very, looking at this, the setup for the druid is very much mimicking the cleric in terms of its structure. Maybe that's how they're gonna kind of like bridge the priest and like the overarching priest narrative for this class. Not mad at it. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. Uh, I think those that want to play spellcasting, like druids, getting wisdom modifier added to your cantrips, they're going to enjoy this. And then Primal Strike once on each of your turns when you hit a creature with an attack roll using a weapon or beast form's attack in Wild Shape, you can cause the target to take an extra D8 elemental damage. There's your elemental. There's some elements right there. Commune with nature spell. Okay. Improve elemental fury. You can cast spells as a beast. Archdruid, okay. Evergreen with wild shape, you can just... Okay, you can regain 1 expended use. When you no longer have any. Nature Magician, you can convert uses of wild shape into a spell slot. Choose a number of your unexpended uses of wild shape and convert them into a single spell slot, with each use contributing 2 spell levels. Okay. Okay. So they saved that conversion spells and using wild shape into bigger, larger spell slots for later, but it still has the once. You can only do this once and finish a long rest before you can do so again. Okay. Saved it for later to do bigger spells, but then they still have it limited to you only can do it one time. The primal magic that you wield causes you to age more slowly. Okay. I don't think at level 20 this should be limited, to be honest. Especially at level 20, because if you're comparing this to Cleric who can cast Wish, right? You just Wish just radically shape the entire campaign how you want it. Versus I dump all my wild shape slots into being able to cast a spell once. I don't think that's on par for a 20th level feature, to be honest. It's an interesting power up. But yeah, it's not. I don't think this is on par with at least the clerics thing. You're just doing more druid stuff that you already kind of do. Yeah, okay. No, I didn't miss it. Yeah, I see this. I just kind of glanced over it. I think spellcaster druids are gonna really like this, and yeah, there's this for melee druids. For what it seems like, and then there's the buff. Oh, when you cast a primal cantrip with a range of 100, or a range of 10 feet or greater, the spell's range. Oh my Jesus! Okay, that's funny. All the way from downtown, casting the spells. Oh, you're gonna just be launching, dude. Holy crap! 300-foot thorn whip. Yeah. Why? It's interesting. It's fun and it's funny. What? Really? 300 feet? Come on, man. 300-foot thorn whip. Your extra damage. Yeah. Just change the lower this. You're not gonna ever need 300 feet, and I don't know if your druid's meant to be a sniper. Like it's. Uh. But yeah, just I don't know. I think on like 150 feet and 300 feet on a battle map is no different, to be honest. What's going on, Phil? Yeah, I don't really think that there's really any difference for this. Just they can lower it and it still would function the exact same thing. That is ridiculous. But yeah. Overall, a little wrap up on the druid. The initial changes up front for the druid, I really enjoy them. Primal Order being sort of a nature answer to Divine Order is awesome. It opens up a lot more character creation, a lot more fantasies, and a lot more play styles for the druid to kind of inhabit this sort of uh, nature man, or excuse me, nature magic mage, but also be a nature warrior. It's awesome. Uh, Allowing you to really kind of like when you mix and match this with subclasses, really mess around with builds and character ideas that you can play with. You're still not really going to be like heavily armored, so you can probably play a really strong midliner unless you're rocking a shield. But then if you just want to like spellcast, you got this option too. It's I like this. I like again I like features like this, especially all the spells druids get from Rager. Yeah, Moon Druid feature. Oh, sick. Okay. So yeah, but for me, like the Druid changes towards the end are a little. Yeah, the Druid changes towards the back end are a little ho hum. I think. I think, to be honest, Wild Resurgence being the middle, it is cool. It allows you to continue to be a druid, especially when you're running out of spell slots and just constantly dump spells. But there is no there is the kind of like diminishing returns. Dumping first level spells to continue to be able to wild shape after you run it, cool. Second level, all right. But as soon as you start getting to those higher level spell slots, you're really losing a lot of utility and power just to turn into an animal that's probably not going to be that strong and get one shot. So that is one thing you got like people really really look at. It's not a good thing that you're dumping a fifth level spell just to turn into a spider. It might be something that's better for the moon druid, right? That can like change into these bigger, stronger forms. But for just a standard old druid, you maybe dump one or two first level spells to continue spellcasting. They changed from wild shape and converting wild shape slots into just a first level spell slot only once. I think they're just playing it a little too safe, to be honest. Playing it a little too safe, and especially that level 20, you get to like still only do it once, but you can kind of convert as many shape change options into this. And for even then, I don't think this doesn't feel 20th level to me. Like your big thing is that you can cast when you no longer like you can wild shape when you no longer have shapes. Cool. Doesn't really feel epic. And then Nature Magician is just an upgrade to Wild Resurgence, where you can convert spells, but you can only do it once. But you can dump as many wild shapes into them, and each wild shape consists of like 2 spell levels. But you still can only do it once. And longevity, the problem magic that you wield causes you to age more slowly. This is more of a flavor thing. It doesn't really, for me, it doesn't really play into your story when you hit 20th level. So Druid, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. It's pretty solid, but not like a home run compared to the Cleric, where I would say like, yeah, Cleric's like an 8 or 9. Or if we're gonna like look at smaller metrics, I would say Druid is a 3, Cleric's a 4. So yeah, okay. And land sanctuary. I know. Yeah, Druid still needs work. It's getting there though. Like I have like the more they keep putting stuff out for the Druid, the more I'm liking it. So it's one of those things I'm hoping to see. Then continue to improve on Circle Forms has returned from 2014 of the subclass as that version of the feature is improved. 6.0 now is feature called Improved Circle Forms. Okay. Combat Wild Shape. When you assume Wild Shape form, compare the Beast AC to your AC. While in that form, you choose whatever AC is higher. Sick. Maybe Magus instead of Magician on the order. No, Magus invokes a flavor or a fantasy for, especially if you're like tied and really aware of Pathfinder, being some sort of like Mage Blade. I'm probably gonna skip over C. I do like it's already gonna. We just hit 9:00. We got to get to Monk, man. Got to get into our karate boy. Let's see. Like I want to really dive into those changes. Armor class, cool. Improve this temporary hit points when you assume wild shape form. You gain a number of temporary hit points equal to its form to the form's hit points or 3 times your druid level, whichever is lower. For example, if you turn into a wolf and as a 5th level druid, you gain 11 temporary hit points since 3 times your druid level is higher than the wolf's hit points. While in wild shape form, you can cast your abjuration spells except for any spell that has a material component with a cost specified or that consumes its material component. Moonbeam, you always have the Moonbeam spell prepared while in the wild shape form and can cast the spell in that form without. Okay. What the what? What? Okay. Okay, the rights of your circle grant you the ability to transform into more dangerous animal forms. The maximum challenge rating for your wild shape is 1. Okay, so shape now equals to your druid level divided by 3. In addition, each of your attacks and wild shape form can deal its normal damage type or radiant damage. You can make this choice each time. Okay. Yeah, auto prep moonbeam, but only wild shape. What is this? This is like giving me WoW flashbacks, man. You're just spamming moonbeam. You're an Alkin. Moonlight step. You magic transport yourself for appearing amid a burst of moonlight as a bonus action. You teleport to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see, and you have advantage on the next attack roll you make before the end of your turn. Okay. Just briefly looking over at Circle the Moon. I think they are very much struggling with the identity of what they want this to be. They are still trying to retain and hold on to the idea that the moon represents like lycanthropy or just in general shape changing into animals. But now they're starting to include moon based flavor to still tie it into like the name of the moon. So I think they're a little conflicting on what they want with this. Still, moonbeam on this is funny. I don't mind the changes. It does tie it a little bit more into the name, Circle of the Moon. But I want to look at. Okay, you still can be a brown bear. Yeah, but now that the elemental aspect of this subclass is kind of taken out, they need to include that elsewhere. I think there is room to turn into to have a circle druid subclass that it turns into elementals, and that is the dedicated like elementalist. Like for me, like there's 2 options. There's 2 options they can go with that route. They can have an elementalist that just slings elemental spells and is all buffed up and just more about that angle of it, or there is an element and a summoner of elementals for a druid subclass, and then there is the druid subclass that turns into giant ass elementals. So that opens up the room for that. Changes are fine. It's something I'll come around to. I think it's just because I'm so used to what we currently see with Moon Druid that a fully dedicated Moon like a shapeshift animal form class or subclass is what I was expecting. But I have to admit, shape changing into elementals was a little awkward too on that subclass. So I would like to see another elementalist based subclass for this. We're gonna skip over Circle the Sea right now just for time purposes. All right, are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Music's too slow. We're gonna change the music because lo-fi does not suit this. Monk. So now, Monk has not been seen in any of these updates. It is finally out in the wild. My assumption, Monk has not been put out because it went through cultural consultants and it went through sensitivity readers in addition to its design before they release it out, because there is an incentive and change, not incentive, but there is a need and want for the monk to evolve beyond stereotypes and tropes that it originally was based out of. Now, that is one thing I'm looking out for. Doesn't move beyond that and become its own thing, it become its own identity, and also expand into including other kinds of flavor and other kinds of cultures into the monk class. We've already kind of saw this with the way of mercy, where the flavor in that was more about surrounding. I believe it was sort of like a plague doctor. So we did already sort of see that trend. Now let's see what they did with the monk. So main changes. Martial arts starts with a D6 rather than a D4 for its martial arts die, and the die applies only to unarmed strikes, not weapons. Weapons are now enhanced by weapon mastery. To keep up with other classes, the monk unarmed strikes needed this damage boost, which goes up to D12 rather than a D10. So many people have called it. It is something that Benjamin Huffman introduced with the Pugilist, which you can find in the DM's Guild. It is an amazing monk adjacent class that plays with the unarmed fighting style, but does it more in a street fighter-esque flavor. And he already did that with that class, and it's no surprise that monk got this change. This has been something that's been called for, been asked for, demanded. People want to hit harder with the monk, the class that should be the unarmed strike master, and should be able to feel that power and hold up against somebody that's going around with a sword. They finally have it. Why not weapons? Because weapons are going to get the weapon mastery feature. So what we know about unarmed strikes have grapple and shove built into their ability. Weapon mastery on the weapons kind of gives them those grapple and shove functions, but in their own way, they're going to have other utility and combat manipulation. Unarmed strikes, on the other hand, already have a built-in grapple and shove, which honestly, it's going to probably be a lot stronger and in what you're able to do in combat. And then the D6 that grows. Because without this, most of the time people were going to play monk. People wanted to play monk as a melee or unarmed fighter, right? That's what the fantasy of the monk was. But optimally, at lower levels, it was probably better for you to play a monk with a weapon, just to maintain damage. Okay, but look at the damage scaling between weapons and unarmed strikes. Weapons are not being nerfed. Weapons are actually being buffed. Flat damage is only flat, but you got to understand classes that normally have that focus on using weapons have other ways to buff their damage, right? Ranger has Hunter's Mark. Fighter gets to attack a hell of a lot more. And then they get more weapon masteries. Weapon mastery, the thing is, what you want to want for martials isn't more damage. It's boring. More damage is boring. It doesn't do anything exciting. You just do more damage. What you're looking for is utility. Utility that allows them to be more active and on par with spellcasters, which is not going to be the case because spellcasters are still spellcasters. Weapon mastery still is attempting to address martials just having the attack action. Unarmed strike doesn't allow and give an additional change. I actually like using weapons as a monk. Heck, the campsite monks exist too, don't they? Yes, they do. And then they were designed in a way to allow weapons deal more damage. But it doesn't mean that they're never going to release more monk subclasses that play with the idea of using weapons. Martial arts weapons, like martial art styles that are based around weapons are a thing, and that's something they can look into and tap into too. Yeah, martial arts die also give a weapon a baseline damage, and I'll get weapon mastery too. The monk does not have to choose between utility. I will tell you, unarmed strike has a ton of utility in there. Unarmed strikes has grapple and shove built into the feature. They're probably going to be one of the best grapplers in the game. And are going to have an incredible amount of control. If I was wrong, I just checked it. It doesn't if I'm reading it right. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to find if they changed unarmed strike rules in this supplement, but I couldn't find it. If it is in there though, because it does matter for something like the dancer bard. Weapon mastery is a new first level feature, giving you new ways to use weapons. Martial discipline, formerly key, gives an improved version of Step of the Wind, which now lets you take both the disengage and the dash action. Okay, so martial discipline is renaming of key. Step of the Wind is still going to use a resource, which is unfortunate, but it pretty much merges the disengage and dash action functions. I think it should be choice, and I think still players have that choice. You could, and the thing is, got to think of it this way too. You could still be a weapon monk, and then what I think we got to look at is how flurry of blows works. So we'll get to that right now. So weapon mastery, martial discipline. Okay, so they changed Step of the Wind. And then deflect missile has been redesigned, making it easier to use in more situations to deal more damage on average. Okay, we're gonna look at this whole thing. Heightened metabolism is a new 7th level feature, making it easier for the monk to regain discipline points and gain other benefits of a short rest. Okay. Stunning strike can now be used only once per turn, and the stun lasts until the start of your next turn. Okay, they still have stunning strike. And it looks like there is nerfs? Question mark. Let me pull up on my side screen just to pull up stunning strike. We'll have that ready. Stunning strike's a big one. I didn't expect it to get any sort of really major changes or get it removed completely, despite DMs or those that are mainly DM dominate hating the feature. So stunning strike. Okay. Empowered strikes, formerly key. Empowered strikes now let you deal force damage. Oh damn. Okay. Acrobatic movement is the new name of unarmored movement improvement. Self-restoration replaces stillness of mind, purity of body, and timeless body, and it allows you to remove the conditions as a bonus action, not an action. What's going on, Platinum Dragon? Deflect energy is a new 13th level feature, allowing you to use deflect missiles to deflect any types of range attacks, including spell attacks. It replaces Tongue of the Sun and Moon, one of the lowest rated monk features. Discipline Survivor also was formerly called Diamond Soul. Superior Defense has been redesigned to not rely on spells. Perfect Discipline has moved from 20th to 15th level, and Defy Death is the new 20th level feature. Okay. We got a lot to look at. Oh my god, man. Monk got a rework. So, martial arts. Big chillin'. Are they patching 5e or something? Just a little patch. No big deal. Just a little patch coming in 2024. But yeah, they're doing a big old pretty much 5e update. In 2024, this is the second pass bringing back classes and other features that they've introduced to us. After the initial first round of playtesting, this is the pretty much quote unquote second start of the second round, but the monk is finally making its appearance, which hasn't been shown at all. So yeah, so we're gonna really look at what this means for monk. Uh, Martial arts. Your practice of martial arts gives you mastery of combat style that use your unarmed strike and simple weapon. You gain the following benefits while you are unarmed or wielding only simple weapons and aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield. Bonus unarmed strike. When you use the attack action with an unarmed strike or simple weapon on your turn, you can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action on the same turn. Interesting. Okay. Dexterous attacks. Well, you can use dexterity instead of your strength for the attack and damage rolls of your unarmed strike and simple weapons, except those that have two-handed property. Okay. Martial arts die. You can roll a d6 in place of the normal damage of your unarmed strike. This die changes as you gain levels in monk. Okay, so there isn't really any real major changes, I think, except to look up. Let me look up. Okay. So there's no longer a quote unquote monk weapon. It is just a simple weapon that you could still attack with. So you can still use a hit with a weapon and then still get an unarmed strike on top of that. Um, Perfectly fine. And then you just go all in on punching kicks, headbutts, all that stuff. I still can't believe they can't use masteries on unarmed strikes. By the way, they don't need it. You don't need it because unarmed strikes have grapple and shove. That's why, like, unarmed strikes getting the buff to grapple it, like getting buffed and having grapple and shove built into unarmed strikes is a big buff. It may not seem that way, but it is a big buff, and it helps out the monk in being a melee controller and is able to fill that role probably better than any other martial in the game. Looking at the bard subclass for dancer, they can fill a similar role, but they're still primarily a spellcaster first. The monk gets a special role now and does fulfill that striker controller melee support. Grapple and shove will not have the DCs based on strength because they're going to be able to use dex. You can use dexterity instead of strength for the attack and damage rolls of your unarmed strikes. Grapple and shove are considered attacks. They will use dexterity. Grapple, shove are very, very powerful tools that are heavily overlooked. Especially with the monk that is capable of doing this all in one turn. For attacks and damage rolls, not for calculating DCs. Well, with grapple, I believe they could already use acrobatics. Yeah, we'll look at the grapple and shove and see how that changes with dexterity. And that's something we can actually, like, we need to ask and further up and ask them about this. If the dexterity clause also applies to the saving throws of the grapple and shove, because grapple and shove are considered attacks. Yes, they are. I'm telling you, they are considered attacks. They are part of the attack action. I only know this just because of Luchador. That's the only reason. If you would ask me before that, I would agree with you, but it is only because I've had to look at the attack action and what the hell that that includes. The grapple and shoves are considered an attack action. That's the only thing. We should have clarity on whether dexterity is applied to the saving throws, which I agree with you guys because that is still vague. Um, so yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. There needs to be some clarity on this because this leaves it up to rules lore stuff. or we have to be like, well, dexterity, because it says dexterity instead of strength for the attack. Technically, these are also attacks, so does it apply to the saving throws? So yeah, that's one thing. It would make sense, but again, since it doesn't state it, and I'm always an advocate for stating the obvious or just stating what should be stated so that there's no discrepancy between player and DM. Even though that isn't always the shared sentiment with other designers. Like I'd rather just make it clear. Here's the info, even if it's a little bit of extra text. I want this stated. Um, so yeah, so that needs clarity, but my assumption it probably should. Um, Simple weapons, except for those that have two-handed property, you can roll a d6. Okay, so if works as intended, just saying, this that is a huge buff damage wise, and if my assumption that the dexterity applies to the saving throws of the grapple and shove, monk is already at level first level is already in a strong spot. Yeah, so as long as it works how I think it works, but that is something we need to ask, and obviously when we do the what's it called, the survey, they need to clarify because that it is a powerful tool, and it's something that honestly thought if this is the case how it works, there might not be a need for stunning strike. But I'm aware they're not going to get rid of stunning strike from the monk because that would be too much of an outcry from the player base to remove something that is so powerful in the class. People don't like it when power is removed, despite parts of the player base finding problems with that feature. Yeah. Yeah, and if that's how it is, then there's no need for masteries, despite masteries offering different things, different abilities, or different things. Because at the same time, you got to understand too, you can still use a weapon, get the mastery off of it, and then use unarmed strike to grapple and shove, meaning you can double dip and get everything you want. Okay, we'll get. Ooh, I think it's like the critting with smite for paladin. The last UA paladin was in where it might be intended to use dex, but looks like it uses strength to me. Okay, I want to see what they do with smite. I heard bad things. Stunning strike is like the thing monks are known for, right? Other than punching. Yep, stunning strike is the thing monks are known for, other than punching motherfuckers. Yes. And yeah, and it's pretty much it was the only thing it was known for. Other than that, it was everybody considered was underpowered. Doesn't really evoke much of anything, right? So, so yeah, we're still on feature one. Okay, if it works as intended, well, I'm assuming that with the way this language is and how unarmed strikes works, already at level one, if grapples and shoves are using dexterity in their saving throws, then we already are in a good spot for monk. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay, so yeah, go. We're in a good spot. Unarmed defense, same shit. Weapon mastery, not surprised. This is one of the ones I was wondering if how this was going to apply, if potentially being applied to unarmed strikes. From what we're seeing, it's only applying to weapons. They have no intention of applying it to unarmed strikes. Um, which is something that could be played and I think opens up some design space for subclasses. But now we know that it is only going to be for simple weapons, and that is it. We can switch them as we go along. Okay. Martial discipline. Your self-discipline and martial training allow you to harness a well of extraordinary energy within yourself. You have your access to the energy is represented by a number of discipline points. Your monk level determines the number of points you have, as shown in the discipline points column of the monk table. Okay, so we're getting pretty much key. It is now rebranded as discipline points, which I prefer. It is a better naming. And again, it's one of those things that kind of removes the sort of the flavoring that makes monk just tropes of negative tropes, or just turns monks into just being quote unquote Asian the class, right? So renaming it to martial discipline, it works, and it actually opens it up to other kinds of other types of cultures, which I'm in favor of. So we still got flurry of blows, patient defense, and step of the wind. We saw step of the wind get changes, so I want to see what patient defense does now. You learn more, or actually no, step of the wind merge. So now you don't just choose disengage or the dash action; you get both of them combined. So that is a plus. So when you spend a discipline point, you regain. It is unavailable until you finish a short rest or a long rest, at the end of which you regain all your expended points. Okay, it works the same. Still a short rest based martial. Okay. Which was a modifier. Okay, so Druid and Bard are Irish, the class, by the way. Yeah, focus would work too. Discipline is interesting. Druid and Bard are Irish, the class, by the way. Not really. Bard has really moved away from any sort of its roots as being like Irish, and the Druid has taken such a fantastical approach to it, where I wouldn't say that it is hard coded as a culture anymore. Unlike how the monk currently is now, where it is very obvious that it still is basing itself on stereotypes from the 70s and kung fu movies. So yeah. Anyway, flare blows. Oh, I'm very aware of like bards and druids, like their history. It's just I don't looking at how they're structuring them, and they're really making them. Druids do not take on the the cultural aesthetics, despite deriving from them. Is the way to put it. And that's normally what happens when like fantasy evolves and moves beyond what its original point. And unfortunately, the monk is one of the classes that just hasn't moved beyond its cultural inspiration. Okay, flurry of blows. Immediately after you take the attack action on your turn, you can spend one discipline point to make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action. So, let's see, making sure. Okay, works identical. So what's the cool thing is like, okay, you can attack with a weapon, right? Get your weapon mastery to pull off, and then you make 2 unarmed strikes, and you can either make 2 attacks or grapple shove, or grapple and hit again. So, okay, flurry blows. Boom. Okay. Patient defense. You can spend 1 discipline point to take the dodge action as a bonus action. Okay. You can spend 1 discipline point to take both the disengage and dash actions as a bonus action. Your jump distance is double for the turn. Man. There's a. Okay. So. This is a small, like, Step of the Wind is a small buff, because now you get the disengage and dash actions as a bonus action, all kind of wrapped into one, which is a plus, because that means you can escape. You're still using a resource though to do so, compared to you're using a resource and an action to do so, on top of getting the jump distance being doubled. Cool. But you got to compare it to the rogue, where you can disengage as a bonus action, right? So I'm it's still a buff, but I preferably would have liked either the disengage dash, whatever, to not cost a resource whatsoever. So that it can play this sort of like striker skirmisher role a little bit more effectively. This is why, like, in a lot of builds I've seen for Monk and the ones I built, also mobile becomes gets included because of the free disengage, and you're not really spending as many resources to get away and play that striker skirmisher role. But if the Monk is moving into more of a combat controller where they're going to be locking down and manipulating the battlefield around them, escaping isn't really going to be a thing that you're kind of going to be doing too much, like, at all. Lapsing Goblin Monk, yeah. Goblin Monk too. There was always other options. That was my Kensei Monk was a Goblin also. I was playing a Ravnica game. I was playing a Boros Scout. That was a Goblin, and I didn't have to take mobile for that one. I was just escaping as a Goblino. Okay, unarmored movement. Unarmored movement, your speed increases by 10 while you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield. The bonus increases when you reach certain levels of Monk. Okay. Deflect missiles. So you can use this was one of the ones they said they got changed. You can use your reaction to deflect ranged attacks against you that deal bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. When you do so, the damage you take from the attack is reduced by 10 plus. Excuse me. The damage you take is reduced by a D10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your Monk level. If you reduce the damage to 0, you can expend 1 discipline point to redirect the attack toward another creature. If you do so, choose a creature within 60 feet of yourself that isn't behind total cover. That creature must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take the damage equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die. The damage is the same type dealt by the attack. Oh my god, there's a lot of text for this. So, oh man. So it's still the same way you reduce the damage. It's a D10 plus your dex modifier plus your Monk level. So that didn't change. It's still a reaction. You still spend a point to do this. Okay. But they did they did make it more believable. It's not necessarily nerfed it, but they made some clarity that the creature you're attacking can't be behind total cover, which is a good thing. But unfortunately, this is a little bit of a nerf. What's going on, man? What's going on? Good luck. Yeah. I'm looking at the time. We're probably going to stop at Monk, and then I'm going to be streaming again on Sunday anyway. So we'll go back. We'll look at the rest of these. And also, we're going to be looking at some Pathfinder stuff too. So we're going to be doubling up. We're going to do some Pathfinder stuff, and then we'll look at the rest of this. I'm looking at the time. Monk isn't bad. Monk isn't bad. It actually got some pretty solid updates. Deflect missiles though is kind of bad. Like it's not that good. So what I'm seeing with deflect missiles, it originally was just you catch it, you reduce it, and then you make an attack with it, right? Now they make it so that it's dependent on a saving throw. Kind of sucks. That's they kind of nerfed it for no real reason. Deflect missiles probably could have still just made it as like you're redirecting the attack and you just make an attack as the reaction, especially since you're already spending a point to do it. Changing this to be based around a saving throw is kind of I don't know, uh not as consistent, to be honest. I don't like this change at all. I would just have them change it back to just a regular attack. Like they have it currently with deflect missiles. I don't know why people thought this was hard to comprehend. But changing it so now it's dependent on a dexterity saving throws, kind of lame, to be honest. Okay, monk subclass is ability score improvement. Slow fall still there. Extra attack is still there. Stunning strike. Okay. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with a simple weapon or an unarmed strike, you can spend 1 discipline point to attempt a stunning strike. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or have the stun condition until the start of your next turn. Okay. Okay. So we still get a melee weapon attack. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I had fun too. I'm hoping to do another one. To be honest, I'm always down. That one shot was sick. I'm now a fan of Cipher System, and I'm gonna see if I can run it for my buddies. But yeah, man. Thanks for stopping by. So yeah, so stunning strike. Comparing it to the other one, target must succeed on a Constitution throw, be stunned. That's the start of your next turn. All right, so the big change is that it is once per turn, so you can't just be like dumping points into this and just try to like nuke them on that one turn. Yeah, the part of the thing, stunning strike is a very very swingy and powerful feature because when it doesn't land, it sucks, right? You are dumping points into doing it. Um, what made it a problem was that the fact that there was no cap on it, where every time you just did a melee attack, you can just dump a point into it, and if you missed it, okay, well, since you have flurry of blows, okay, you dump another point in flurry of blows, and then you attack again, right, and dump another point into it, and then if that doesn't land, okay, then your second attack, you can dump another point and see if you can stun them again. You can do that like 3 times in a turn, 4 times if you have extra attack. Right, actually, 4 times you have an extra attack, or still 3 times if because of the bonus action attack, and that's when you don't even use any resources. You can just dump it all on the stunning strike. It doesn't make it irrelevant though. It's still a very very powerful tool. It's still a very very swingy tool, um, because once you pop this off, right, your allies, and if you pop this off early and get this off on your turn, your next 2 attacks, like say you do pop it off in magical Christmas land, right? You have extra attack already, and then you have at least 1 bonus action attack, maybe a second if you do flurry of blows. You pop it off, you get it off on the first attack, right? That's 2 to 3 attacks all with advantage. Yeah, it is still very very swingy. It is a feature that needed to be nerfed. Um, and to be honest, I'm surprised it's still there to some extent, because part of the problem with stunning strike, it eats up a lot of the power budget of the monk. So subclass features are not as powerful or as strong as they could be because of how good stunning strike is currently. Now with this nerf, they could probably do a little bit more cooler stuff with the subclasses and don't have to dance around like making subclass features that might bust up and make stunning strike too like reliable or too OP than it already is. It was already strong. It needed the nerf to some extent. And this is somebody that likes monk, by the way, because you were just able to spam this thing and get eventually, you know. Yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't have mind if they just straight up nerfed and killed Stunning Strike and then moved like a strike feature to each subclass instead. But that's just me personally. But either way, um, I'm glad it still does what it's intended to do. I'm also glad that it is nerfed so that we can actually see other cool stuff happen with the monk. Like we really, um, like already having the unarmed strikes change and then the weapon mastery really is solidifying the monk as this sort of martial controller, and stunning strike still being there. It monk is starting now that I'm seeing is starting to have a real niche on what it's intended to do in 5e, which currently doesn't really do well at all, like in its current form. But now with this update, monk is looking pretty hot. I would still play monk in current 5e. I don't care, but now seeing that these changes for monk are looking pretty good. So yeah, so stunning strike it was an expected nerf. I'm also glad they just didn't completely gut the feature. It does what it is intended to do, which is to shut down a threat for the turn. And if unarmed strike grapple shove works as intended. Oh, never mind. No, it wouldn't. They wouldn't get disadvantage. Never mind. Not thinking. Just ignore that. But yeah, just the monk is starting to like form a role. What it's coming down to now. Another nice buff. They do force damage. There's not that many creatures, not many monsters that are resistant to force damage. Very, 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 very few. So this is a nice damage upgrade. A flavorful one. They're just not straight up magical. Like you're actually just like you're hurting and punching them so hard that you're just straight up ripping through them. Also, Empowered Strikes all but confirms to me that magical BPS is going away and being replaced by force damage. Yeah, that is another big noticeable change. They probably are getting rid of magical damage. Or at least magical damage. Yeah, they're replacing yeah. I think we'll still see with magic weapons, to be honest. Con save is bad. Save to target and only one attempt makes it super unreliable. Plus one target only, even if you resist magical bludgeoning, so it's a side grade. Yeah, but you shouldn't be able to spam it. That was the problem with Sunny Strike. You would spam it. It shouldn't have been able to be spammed. Because eventually they're going to fail to land it. Like, so Sunny Strike still does what it does. I think what it need we're gonna say a little bit more on Sunny Strike. I think what the Stunning Strike nerf does though, does enforce team play. Now you do need to have other features in play that cause disadvantage to the enemy to constitution saving throws or limit or nerf their saving throws so that Stunning Strike is a reliable thing. I don't mind the nerf. I saw it was going to come. It should not be a surprise to anybody. It was the ability to spam it and continue to spam it was a problem that slowed down gameplay, and it just made the game not fun for pretty much another side of the table. Yeah. Yeah, you like with Stokers, yeah, you would need features that either cause disadvantage or just screw up the math on their roll. Like, I'm all for teamwork play. I think this game needs more of it, to be honest. It is something that 5e, unfortunately, when it dives so much into certain levels of power fantasy, that one character can really dominate the game, and it does pretty much remove a level of team play that the game would benefit way more from. All right, so evasion when you're subjected to an effect that follows you to make that. Excuse me. When you are subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and only half damage if you fail. You don't benefit from this feature if you have incapacitating condition. Okay. Same. Okay. Evasion's evasion. Heightened metabolism. If you spend at least 1 minute resting, you can give yourself all the benefits of a short rest. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again. Oh my god. Okay. So this is something that reminds me of a lot of monk fixes I've seen thrown out there in order to regain key point, or excuse me, currently regain key or discipline points. Where they have some sort of like bonus action, they can sort of give this little small rest, regain at least a key or this a discipline, so they can continue going on. This is another one. This is another way that they're kind of introducing this. You can regain all your discipline points at least once per long rest, um, in a minute. Yeah, this is just in general a good thing. It keeps them going. This is a W. This is the buff. Acrobatic movement. While you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, you gain the ability to move along vertical surfaces and across liquids on your turn without failing. Excuse me, without falling during the movement. Music is a little okay. Oh, sorry, I have music on my end. Um, while you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, you gain the ability to move along vertical surfaces and across liquids on your turn without falling during the movement. Okay, that's still the same. We'll run up walls and do cool stuff. I can walk across water and do cool stuff. That is the same. Acrobatic movement. It's, what was the original name? Uh, Unarmored movement improvement. Oh, well, it's better than unarmored movement improvement, though. I want to say that. just improvement. Okay. Self-restoration. Through sheer force of will, you can use a bonus action to remove one of the following conditions from yourself: charm, frighten, or poison. In addition, foregoing food and drink doesn't give you levels of exhaustion. Cool. In the 20. Okay. So they're just explaining why disease is pretty much a coded rule or a coded term in the game. And pretty much most disease like abilities use the poison condition, so they're just going to use the coded word of poison condition for the rules. Makes sense. Okay. You can now use your deflect missile feature against range attacks that deal any damage type, not just bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. Cool. I still think the change to deflect missile sucks. Just making it attack. Just please make it an attack. Just no need to make it a save. Discipline survivor. Your physical and mental discipline grant you proficiency as all saving throws. Additionally, when you make a saving throw and fail, you can spend 1 discipline point to reroll it and take the second result. Okay, cool. Perfect discipline. You regain when you roll initiative. You gain 4 expended discipline points. You have none remaining. Okay. You gain the ability of superior defense. As a bonus action, you spend 3 discipline points to perfectly bolster yourself against harm for 1 minute, or until you are incapacitated. During that time, you have resistance to all damage except force damage. That's a lot of points, though, man. That is a lot of points. So self-restoration and is a consolidation of both stillness of mind and purity of bond. It's a nerf though, also. All right, let's go look at stillness of mind. Purity of body. You're immune to disease and poison. So stillness of mind, purity of body. Purity of the body was just put into self-restoration because disease doesn't have is not a coded rule. So you still are gonna have you can still remove poison. So being immune to disease doesn't really mean anything in the context of the rules. Poison condition, they just moved it so that you could just remove it yourself. Um, it's there, but it's a slight nerf. But I don't know. It's poison. Like depends on how prevalent they're gonna make poison and actual condition, and if they're gonna actually buff poison. Because unfortunately now in 5e poison sucks completely. Highly resisted or creatures are highly immune. So what was the other one? You're immune to disease and poison. It just straight up says you're poison. You're immune to poison. Yeah, it was immunity. Yeah, for me, I think they're trying to buff poison to some extent, but I don't know if it's gonna be a one-way buff. Diamond Soul. Okay. Trying to slow some mind. You could use your action to end one effect on yourself that is causing you to be charmed or frightened. So how's it not ending certain fear effects or charmed? While charmed by the spell, the creature is incapacitated and has a speed of 0. Okay. And then also mind you. Okay. So yeah, that does seem that is a nerf, but we also don't know to the extent how spells are going to get balanced, right? There's still that to come. That as far as I'm aware, they're still meant to have a spell, some level of spell overhaul. And the thing is, we gotta be mindful too, because they are getting away and moving away from effects that pretty much remove your turn. That's just something overall like everybody's kind of like moving away from, and it's something I've noticed that they're trying to move away from in the base class features, which are probably going to move away from in the spell features also. Okay. So just be mindful. But as far as we see now, yeah, this is a nerf because you can't do it to certain effects. So empty body gets replaced with superior defense. As a bonus action, you spend 3 discipline points to perfectly bolster yourself against harm for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated. During that time, you have resistance to all damage except force damage. Okay, that is a lot of points. Oh, okay, well, this one is 3 points. The other one is 4 points. Empty body gets you 4 points, but you become invisible. And then you have resistance to all damage, but force damage. But then you can spend 8 points to astral project. This is a nerf, but also I think what we're seeing, and it is very very apparent, they're moving away from that mystical coded Asian mysticism that was built into the monk, and they're very much focusing on honing in on the physicality and the martial discipline in general, just discipline of being a monk. and what it means to and what that actually means. So they are moving away from the aspect. So you are going to see like, that's what I'm seeing there. They are moving away from that. Doesn't mean there isn't going to be some level of like spirituality. I'm pretty sure that is going to be put into the subclasses. Warriors. Okay. Okay, they're changing. They're changing the names too. Okay. Yeah, brother. Worst name, worst flavor, fewer abilities, worst abilities. Why? Is that about racist too? Yes, it is. Part of the problem with the naming and then leaning in on that mysticism, the Asian mysticism, which is inherently racist, is what made the monk narratively and be wrapped in, unfortunately, racism. So yeah, they are going to change the names of stuff, and that is to move away from that, and also to make the monk is distinct its own thing, right? It's distinct in its own thing. That also it can move beyond its cultural ties and become something and evolve into something better. We've already seen there was just other classes that have taken inspiration from other cultures and they have moved beyond their original inspirations and have due to other media and other influences that pretty much have permeated throughout playing TTRPGs and video games are its own thing. Like Druid, for example, has Celtic origins, Irish origins, but it very much is reflective now of like people that play Warcraft and want to just turn into cool ass animals or have nature and primal magic. It is very little outside of the name of what a druid is, right? That's what it is. And monk for a long time has needed to move beyond that. Yeah, and if you don't like it, oh, like, hey man, that's your deal, and that's perfectly fine. You're perfectly entitled to feel that way. I'm okay with them moving away from certain aspects that leaned into racist ideologies and interpretations, and so we can move the monk and any aspect of this game into a more inclusive space and more inclusive ideas that allow them to actually explore other ideas within the class chassis. Like it's just what we want to see out of any of the games for any of these. I would like to see instead of one class be the Asian class that takes every Asian type of inspired media and put into one class. I'd rather have that spread out through multiple classes. Like if you're going to be inspired by anime, it shouldn't just be put into the monk. There's a lot of cool ass anime fantasy that you can spread into other classes that would be sick. But because the monk unfortunately has been so hard coded as being and taking inspiration from Asian culture and being just like again, I keep saying Asian the class. Well, you have that problem where anything that can be inspired by Asian culture and Asian media gets fit into this class and again doubles down on the stereotype, doubles down on the problematic issues. When the monk should evolve beyond that and also incorporate and be able to evolve and be a chassis that has all kinds of cultures, all kinds of ideas. So moving that one part of its mysticism out of it to make it more about physicality and discipline. I don't mind this change, but there is going to be some changes. Yeah, they did nerf some things. Like as soon as you get into the lower end of the monk, where you start seeing this. But again, we don't know what changes they're going to make to spells because they haven't been forward with any changes they made to spells too heavy. But based off of just this is going to be somewhat of a nerf. While you can end these conditions, obviously, as we see it stands, there's certain spells that we can't interact with that prevent us from actually using this. But again, there might be changing those spells. We don't know to what extent, or it might evolve like team play, counterplay too. It's a fantasy game. There has to be some mysticality, or it's just a fighter without a sword if there's no spiritual element class. So, what is the monk reflective of? not wielding a weapon. There's no replacement flavor here. It's just nothing. Monk looks to be a unarmored, focused fighter, like a warrior. That is looks like what they want it to be. That it is based about discipline of your body and turning your body into a weapon. That is the base class of the chesses. That is what it looks like it wants you to do, and for me, it's like okay, they are doing that. There's no other class that allows you to be an unarmed fighter. That is the monk specialty. That is its highlight. You cannot successfully do that in a way that with any other class. In addition, design like just from its role, it is a martial controller, confirmly a martial controller now. So yeah, it is. Yeah, but also understand this. I'm gonna say this, and I have to double down on this because I see this very very hyperbolic discussion, and I see this happen in not just in a lot of online spaces. This is not the end all or be all of the playtest. I think people need to really comprehend that s- this is remember this is our first pass at the monk, and just like all these other classes, they're getting multiple passes, and the monk will also get multiple passes. So changes will be made, and people they will respond to those changes. We've seen this time and time again. They are responding to changes. This is no different. So I say this to you, and I say this to other people that will watch this or will listen. You don't like it? Let them know in the survey. It is perfectly fine. Because yeah, there's some things I don't. I can see that they're obviously nerfs, especially at the later levels, as well as some of the changes. Yeah, mainly for me, I have problems mainly changed with the later levels, and I have and then also with deflect missiles. This is where I think the nerf really is. But in terms of what roles and stuff it is they're formulating monk into and wanting it to be, I'm okay with this. Yeah, I see there being another 1 to 3 more passes on each of the class presented here, depending on the timeline. Yeah, yeah, it's okay to have issues, but I think people really need to channel this into a positive manner and give the feedback and give this some time and some grace instead of you know immediately resulting to anger and yeah, resulting to anger and just pretty much a lot of mom mentality and just being hyper negative. This is not the end all be all. We got a lot of passes still. 2024 is a long way away still because they are releasing this towards the end of next year. This is the first pass at Monk. We still got way more to go. The reason Monk was not coming out earlier was because of the OGL. That is why. That is completely why. The OGL issue derailed one D&D. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, we're just gonna look at the subclasses really quick, and then I will be back Sunday. We're gonna get into Pathfinder. I want to preview a Pathfinder supplement that was shared to me by a friend of the channel, Ukulele Bard, that he had worked on to expand some Pathfinder plays. So we're gonna be looking at that, and then I will come back and finish up this UA because it is gonna be 10:30 on my end. I got work in the morning. I like the supernatural aspects to fantasy worlds, and it pains me to see an aspect of world building that I like downplayed. The thing is, I've heard others where they don't like the supernatural aspects of the monk. They feel it's too anime. They feel that it leans, and it's not even like the race issue tied to this. It is simply from a mechanical standpoint. I've had other people say they straight up don't like the spirituality because it and mystical parts of the monk because it leans too much into anime, and that kills the immersion for the class. So it goes both ways. Like for me, being in this space and seeing the variety of comments on this, um, I will say nobody's gonna be happy about any of these changes because people want very, very different things out of what they expect out of each class chassis. No, here's the thing. WotC doesn't agree with them. WotC agrees with your wallet. I'm gonna be very, very clear. The changes being introduced in here and the walkbacks that they've introduced in this document so far has everything to do with your wallet. This is all these are voted on by the community. That's all this is. It is. They're introducing changes. Monk is the first pass through. But we've seen already 2 pass-throughs for 2, and so maybe 3 pass-throughs for some of these other classes, and where it is becoming very apparent they're walking back things because people are not being as receptive to major changes as they probably would have liked. And they're being receptive to some changes. So I will say, expect that from the monk on the second pass-through, because it will happen. I get my martial artist inspirations from combat sports like Muay Thai, so I like that the supernatural aspects downplayed. You can lead the magic to subclass. Yeah, see, Karu, thank you for stopping by. But yeah, see, there is a complete opposite. But again, this is a first pass through. It is going to be very contentious. But WotC only cares about your wallet. WotC, every time Wizards has attempted to be ambitious with any sort of changes, they've, for the most part, have been walked back. Standardized, for example, standardized subclass progression. Completely walked back. So WotC tries a bit, but again, they care more about how you're going to vote with your wallet, and they want you to buy this game. And from all intents and purposes, everything that they introduce, some stuff gets changed, and a lot of stuff gets walked back. Because in general, people are very happy from what it seems like with 5e so far. Like what it is right now, they want small, minor changes. Those that want major changes, to this, I will say this, the hot take, they probably don't really want to be playing 5e. They want to play a different game. They either just haven't found it yet, or they're really want 5e, like they're trying to change 5e into be that game. Because they want to play D&D, but they just don't want to play this version of D&D. So that's for me. That's what I've seen. A lot of people that are wanting like super massive changes to 5e generally don't like playing 5e, but they still want to play D&D for some reason. When they probably be a lot happier they just played another RPG that gave them exactly what they wanted or what they're looking for. You know. But yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. I'm not gonna be able to get to the subclasses. We'll get to the subclasses on Sunday. I want to get into Rogue because I've seen people talk about it. We'll get into these monk subclasses. I want to see how they interpret and how they change Ninja, Warrior of Shadow, how they change the Ninja subclass, Warrior of Elements. I want to see how they change the Elemental, which is supposed to be Way of the Element monk needed to do a huge rework. So I'm looking forward to see how they change Warrior of the Elements. We'll get into this on Sunday after some Pathfinder and Warrior of the Hand, Open Hand monk. I want to see how they do this. So yeah, we'll see with this. It's running late. I need to get ready for bed. We'll be back Sunday. We'll look into the other half of this, and again, we will also look into some Pathfinder, a fun Pathfinder product to help those that are wanting to convert and jump into the Pathfinder ecosystem and into the system and trying to learn it, but don't like the options up front into the expanded, or excuse me, don't like the options up front into the beginner's box. Uh, Ukulele Bard has a product out there that I think you'll be interested in. That's pretty damn awesome. But okay, before I go, I will just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the stream and for future videos for the time being until this Kickstarter is up and running and it's run its campaign. Sky Zephyrs. It is a third party 5th edition product by father and son team Homie and the Dude, who cover TTRPG and MMA content. Currently on their channel, there are several interviews with various MMA fighters, as well as TTRPG actual plays that are out there that they're doing, which you can check them out here on YouTube. What Sky Zephyrs is, it is a supplement aimed to bring players ship and aerial combat rules to 5e that complements but does not bog down 5th edition combat. So we've seen stuff in Eberron, we've seen stuff in Spelljammer where they introduce some sort of ship and aerial combat rules, but they're not really expanded on. Sky Zephyrs aims to fill that gap and actually bring you some sort of some supplement that help fulfill that fantasy of, not only just driving airships, but also fighting on top of airships and space pirates, etc. All that fun stuff. Along with the book supplement, they're also going to release a digital version if you just want to get the PDF. But there's also going to be a digital tool that will help you run the mechanics of their product that they're really, really hoping and wishing you guys will be able to check out sometime soon. As soon as I get access to any and all this stuff, I will also share that with you guys. So again, the Kickstarter will be launched soon. I have a link in the description that will let them know that I'm sending you over there. You can click and be notified when the Kickstarter launches, or when the Kickstarter launches, you can click the link below. And if you kickstart it, I get a little kickback. So you're not only just supporting them, you're supporting me too. So it's a win-win for everybody. You get cool stuff, they get money, I get a little kickback. Everybody wins. So yeah. So again, I'll come back Sunday. We're going to look at the rest of the monk. We're going to look at the rest of the classes, and we're going to look at some Pathfinder stuff. And then in the following week, we're probably going to do a little bit of some Cypher system stuff too. If you're really interested in a more narrative type of game, maybe you want to step away from the more tactical stuff, more core fantasy stuff, and you're just looking for a system that'll help you play any kind of genre. We're going to be looking into some Cypher system too. So tune in for that. All right. It is getting late, guys. I will see you in the next one. Thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you, Skippy. I know it was getting a little heated, but I really appreciate you coming by and interacting and being here. Don't think I didn't listen, man. Like, I really appreciate you guys for coming up and showing up. I know it is late, and I love interacting with you guys, even if we don't always agree. It's fine. As always, we just gotta stay positive, keep our head up, and we'll get the game we want. I have a feeling that's what's gonna happen. We're gonna get the game. Thanks, Fallen, for stopping by. Thank you, Phil. And until next time, guys, I see you guys on Sunday. You guys have a good one and take care.